We're three guys who like to talk pinball, so we came up with a clever name. We're Joel and Travis Scott who talk pinball, and we call ourselves Triple Drain, Triple Drain, Triple Drain. We're Triple Drain.
All right, we're here. We are at Stern, sitting literally at their conference table, recording an episode. I didn't ever think this day would come, but we're here.
Yeah, there's going to be no technical difficulties for me today.
Yes.
Travis, you should just vanish.
Yes.
I might have just jinxed it. Let me make absolutely sure.
It's
okay.
all good.
Yeah, we're fine.
Okay, so we are here, and we're here with Keith. We've played Kong. We're having a lot of fun with that game. That game is awesome. And you were out on the line, right?
I was out on the line. They're rolling down the line now. I think Monday they should start going out.
Wow. So when you're on the line, what specifically are you looking for on the games? Are you adjusting, tweaking?
Yeah, so pretty much any time there's a mech or a spotlight or something, they don't know where the spotlight goes, how this mech actually is supposed to interact with the ball and everything. And it's, particular case like King Kong mech itself has a whole bunch of little calibration tweaks you can do. So you want to get maximum movement without smacking into the train or the side. So it's all about dialing that in and teaching the line workers how to do that. Nice.
And I know the King Kong mech, it hits the glass. And that's something that's funny is hearing it like tap, tap, tap as you're going is a cool little...
Well, see, there's a trick to it. You want it to just barely hit the glass, but you can make it. I think you saw in like one of the flyer photos, the glass wasn't on. His arms were way above it. So that one definitely was not calibrated. So you would not be able to put the glass on if he was like that.
And I know you said calibrate the spots. There are two large spotlights on top of the slings. They're kind of hidden there.
Yeah.
And that illuminates that middle of that playfield really well.
Yeah. So the combination of those two and the two in the apron, in fact, it was so illuminated that Jack actually taped off the bottom two for the stream because it was too bright in the middle.
Okay. Speaking of too bright, Tom, what are your overall thoughts on? Travis played this a bunch. He was texting us in the background. Oh my gosh, this game is S tier. It's so great. Just wait.
Because it is.
It is.
It is. Are you going to say to Keith's face it's not?
No, I prefer to make fun of you. But
it needs a little work, Keith.
It
does. It does.
I'm just kidding.
I will say, though, Travis admits he's scared of the gong. He is scared of the gong.
Well, Keith saw what it did to me continuously. Everybody else,
we have a term
fine.
for it, but this is a family-friendly show.
It's not a family-friendly show. I don't know.
I was told today we have 12-year-olds that listen to this.
Oh, okay.
So...
Well, shout out to you.
You got gong screwed.
Yeah.
Gong. So what we're saying is the gong on the Premium and LE, because of the way you design that mech, is it the spring that's pushing back on the ball, or there's a coil that's pulling that gong back towards the ball?
So there's a coil that engages that pre-winds a spring.
Okay.
And so when you hit the gong, it just puts all the energy in the spring and then fires back at you. When the coil disengages, it ignores the spring entirely.
And that's what we're saying, where if you expect that to be a safe shot, and that's a very important shot because the gong shots lead you towards your island modes, it's a scary shot.
It is.
It's a scary shot.
It is, but there's no pop bumpers or anything to like throw it down the drain.
Yeah.
So I had to put some riskier shots in there. So we got the pit magnet right there, and we got the gong right here. On the Pro, it's going to be a little more work to light those modes. Despite what Travis thinks. Right now, it's too easy. We're going to fix it.
No, I like it. I like how you light it. Because it's kind of like Iron Maiden, right? You played Iron Maiden before, right?
I have.
Okay.
You shoot around.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
a little too easy now because every shot's lit. We need to go through and give that another difficulty.
So are you going to do it like the Eddie letters?
It should get more and more difficult, but it doesn't because that's something we implemented in the last minute. So.
Right. So it's kind of like it's on like Joel mode right now.
Wow.
Right,
yeah, it's Joel.
I'm not the one complaining about the gong.
I bet the center ramp probably spots you like 3 shots, doesn't it? Something like that. Probably should.
So
Joel.
you're saying Premium and LE, you hit the gong a few times, then once it's solid or flashing, that's when the next time you hit the gong, it's going to go all the way through. You start your mode.
Yeah, there's a little yellow insert, and when that's lit, that means the gong is loaded and locked. It's going to fire back at you. When that insert's not lit, you can shoot through it.
Okay, but you're saying on the Pro, because there is no gong, you're going to have to hit an arrangement of shots, or a certain number of them, and then it'll be lit to start your mode.
Yes. My worry was, since that feeds a VUC right to your right flipper, that tournament players are going to backhand. trap up, backhand gong, trap up. I was like, this is pointless. I'm going to defeat this before it even happens. So make you shoot some other shots to light that. And then
he's a fun hater. That's what it is. He's a fun hater.
I know.
Tom, what's your favorite shot?
I really like how you made it so like the little flipper, you can go up that ramp, it'll come back, and then you can shoot it back. How did you come up with that? I mean, was that like pre-planned, or did that just kind of come to be?
Yeah, that was hopefully my plan.
Yeah.
It was really, really tough. The hardest shot to get dialed in on this entire playfield was that upper shot from the upper right flipper. It's like the little U-turn.
Yeah.
And it was so clunky. And we were like, oh man, we have to cut this shot. But
Oh, wow. Yeah.
we gave it another try. We lowered the side ramp down a little bit, and that was the magic sauce.
It feels really good. So I would encourage. So there's so many really cool shots that if you just step up to this game, what is it that I want to hit? What is it I want to do? But that shot, what Tom was saying was, if you can feed that upright flipper, you basically shoot under the ramp. But you don't see it in any of the pictures. But it's a very quick horseshoe, and somehow magically feeds that mini flipper on the left.
Yeah.
Well and consistently.
Yeah.
And so you can do this kind of crazy figure eight type shot between the ramp and that over and over again.
Yeah.
And you have a whole mode based on that.
Yeah. So I first designed that. We didn't have the diverter in place yet. I was like, oh, this is really fun, but an expert player can just do this all day. And so when we put the diverter in, it's like, okay, perfect. Now we can have certain modes where you can do that. You can't do it all day because you're going to reach the end of the mode. And so you could experience that a little bit. It was everyone's favorite mode during the process because they can, try to get it perfect.
Yeah.
Get them going across the log there.
And that diverter he's talking about, it pops up the log diverter. Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
It pops up to the left of the mini flipper to feed that. And so you had made a comment on Loser Kids that you feel like that upper area is kind of like a mini playfield, but not. Yeah. And it truly does feel like that. You're either up experiencing that kind of situation or the ball goes right by it. And you made even going down the river like a cool visual thing, and the way it feeds the left flipper is smooth and consistent.
When I was very young, I would play a game called I think it's Knockout by Bally.
Oh yeah.
And it had a little the little wiggly thing in the middle. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. But then, you play today. I was like, yeah, it's all right. I was like, well, what if this actually served a purpose?
Okay.
What if it actually slows the ball down to where I can shoot the ball in a loop. It'll be flying through there, but it slows down enough that you can actually make another shot. So it's funny if you actually pull that sculpt out of there and then try to loop like Josh was doing last night. It's so fast. It's impossible.
Because on Jaws you just had that straight down.
Yeah. Jaws I intended that to be super fast.
Yeah.
But on this one you didn't want that.
Well, so you said that shot under the ramp, multiple iterations.
Yeah.
So start all the way back at the beginning.
Are we saying Keith is admitting to making
He's
a clunky shot?
He
at the very
doesn't need. He doesn't need just one whitewood.
Yeah. No.
So I don't know. Start wherever you want on the playfield. Certain mechs is this. I mean, obviously we've experienced the final iteration, but I think you said on Loser Kids there was at one point there was a drop in front of the cave, but other than that, everything's in the game. I'm just assuming it took a little while to get to where it's at.
So I had a drop target in front of the cave, and it wasn't satisfying because it basically just sent the ball flying over the flipper. And then we needed we discovered we needed a second coil for the gong mech. So that was an easy, all right, hit the road. We used that drive to basically move that coil to the gong mech to get more kinetics out of it. The whole playfield was designed around the right orbit, not an orbit, whatever it is. It's the punch back, back to the upper right flipper. The whole layout was designed around that. And then I put in the upper left little mini playfield area. And I originally had 2 pop bumpers kind of in the middle where the biplane ramp is.
Really?
Yeah.
Where would that have fit?
So I had more targets going up the middle, kind of where the spinner shot is.
Okay.
I'll have to dig up that CAD file if I can find it. But yeah, it was something like that. And I was like, I think I'd rather have like a side ramp that just screams down at you. So I told Harrison, let's make the tallest ramp we can make and have it come flying down a helix. We'll call it the biplane ramp. So we designed that, and no regrets there. I don't miss the pop bumpers.
Well, that's the one thing too. Like the pictures don't really show how tall that ramp really is.
Yeah.
Like if you see it in person, it looks like it's going through the glass. Like, and then somehow the ball gets around there. Like, there was a couple of times we got it to the very top, and it almost felt like it wasn't going to quite get there. It'd kind of stall for like a few, and then it would just go flying around. Then other times it'd just be a perfect feed. And it's fast and it's satisfying too. Especially what is that mode? Save and I think is that to where you got to hit the kickback, then it comes back. You
escape the swamp.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then you hit the kickback and you keep building up the value over and over again to cash it in eventually.
Yeah.
That's
So
a lot
when
of
you
fun.
hit the punchback target, it sends the ball flying to the upper flipper, which I think, in my opinion, makes that ramp really easy to hit because it just screams up it, comes around.
Yeah.
It's a little bit harder to hit when you do the crossover and it's coming much lower velocity, but it's definitely still there. But
Well, I wanted to see if I could hit the left orbit shot from the right flipper, and it's tight, but you can do it.
it's actually not that tight.
Like,
it's
for
visually.
For Joel, this is a tight
Wow,
shot.
yeah.
That's tight.
It's a visual thing because it's so far in the back and there's so
Yeah.
much stuff in front of it. But it's actually one of the biggest shots in the game.
Yeah, it's cool because it's you don't realize how far back it is.
Yeah.
And then there was one point where I ricocheted off something and somehow hit from the right flipper the back left ramp. And that's such a surprise when that happens.
That's
as
actually
well.
designed that way. It's called the ricochet shot.
Well, there you go.
Damn, there, yeah.
Oh, there you
Because
go.
we saw it happen, we're like, that's cool
Yeah.
as shit. Like,
Yeah.
Look at that.
So we actually have a rule for that.
There, seriously.
You'll say
there is.
ricochet, and you get 5 million.
Oh, hey.
So it
That's five more.
detects.
Yeah.
That is,
It detects.
That's
Okay.
awesome. What about, so was Kong always going to be back right?
Yeah, Kong was always back right. Originally, he was on an Empire State Building, and he was, climbing and climbing and climbing. And when he got to a certain point, he could divert the ball to a lock. The problem was that in order to use Empire State Building, we had to get the proper, scale and everything. And that whole thing it turned into a fiasco. It's like, okay, let's make our own building. But then it was just a scale. George wanted this giant King Kong back there. And in order to have him climbing any kind of building, we had to make him so small that it's like, okay, this is extremely underwhelming. And he's like, think of something else, guys. So then we had him pretty much the same size he is, but grabbing a ball, picking it up, and then we were going to try to throw it at the player. But it was too hard to actually, magnetically pick up the ball. And then what? Player 2 drains, player 1 comes back up, and he's like, why is he holding the ball? And it was harder to get rid of the ball out of his hand, and it just wasn't worth it. And George was a big fan of the 3-ball dump on Godzilla, so he's like, give me something where all the balls just come flying at you. So Harrison and I was like, well, I know he likes bashing up trains, so why don't we load up a train car with balls and just have him smash it over, and they come flying out.
Yeah, it's we've all experienced multi-ball. I will say the sweepable drops when you hit it feels good. I assume I haven't swept them yet, but I find that shot to hit the drops from the right flipper is a challenge for me. But yet the fact that you have options though, backhand with the left or hit the river shot to feed the upper flipper, which you can then cradle and pick it at that way. I do think that's going to be a challenging multi-ball for a novice to get. Yeah. But yet the Spider, the Beast multi-balls are very easy to get.
Yeah. So the sweep rule, actually, you only need 2 targets to initiate the sweep rule.
Okay.
So if you hit any of the 2 targets and the ball goes all the way around to the upper right flipper and you shoot biplane ramp, you get the sweep combo. So you just need 2. The more you sweep at once, the much higher values. If you can do all 4 and do the super sweep combo, it's like 50 million.
Awesome. Yeah. And I know there's a lot in the game right now. Like that's something that the fact that you can choose your mode, there's 5 modes, I think, in the game. Is that 5 total ever, or there's additional modes you're going to add after that, or is it just 5 island modes?
Oh, the island modes? No, we have a bunch of New York modes to add. The island modes are done. We have a wizard mode for the island. That's it. Then we have a few more New York modes. And we have some modes associated to shots. We have biplane mode, the rapids mode. Even the 2x scoring phase is kind of a mode because once 2x is going, you can shoot. There's one random flashing stand-up target. If you shoot that, it's worth points, and that keeps growing. So even if you have nothing running, there's still a mode.
Okay, because that's what at least when I was playing in there, it's like, okay, I did an island mode. I've done the Kong multi-ball. I've done the Beast multi-ball. At that point, it's like I could focus on climb arrows, right? And try to work towards a New York mode. Otherwise, I'm going to keep chipping away at island modes or...
Yeah, plus, the climb arrows are almost always lit, and you're always getting credit towards working towards a Kong letter.
Mm-hmm.
So you spell King, it lights the skill shot mode, the Deadeye. You spell King Kong, it lights the T-Rex battle.
Yeah. Did either of you experience Deadeye?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did. I think 2 of the skill shots. I was like trying to find it. I'm like, where is it?
You got to palm it.
Yeah. If you
Yeah.
do the palm plunge, yeah.
Yeah, you can just rapid fire.
What's cool is too,
Oh.
as soon as you get 3, right?
Yeah.
Then you got to go to the rapids.
Yeah,
or,
I saw
the
that.
Super, that's that's a
Interesting.
really
So
cool
this-
nuance.
There's 3 targets in the beast area. So any of those will count?
Yep.
And then in lane or out lane or
Yep.
any of
Pretty
that?
much anything that's a switch on the left-hand side will
Yeah.
count.
Because I was hitting posts all day. And
You
I didn't
can't
get...
fell it, Joel. It's designed for you not to fell it.
It's awesome. I think it's
did
a really
you fell
cool
it or
mode.
did you complete it?
I did not play it.
Oh,
but
you
the
haven't
people
played it
I've
yet?
seen
Oh.
play it, I
I'm
realized.
just kidding. You can
it's
fell it.
cool.
I felled it all the time. Yeah. I was just hoping you played it and you. Yeah.
So you have to hit 3 of them, and then it lights the jackpot at the river. But you can keep
Correct.
hitting more if you want
You
before
can.
you go for the jackpot.
But in an ideal world, you hit 3, you'll get the super jackpot, and then get another 3 and another super jackpot. Or you can just try to cash in the super jackpot at the end.
Mhm.
But I kind of like just cashing the points while they're there, other than risking it all.
True.
You know.
You know that Travis gets a lot of joy out of filming gameplay videos of how to break the game.
How to break the game.
How to break the game. Here's your launch party strategy. Here's all the points. What's the script that he should use on Kong? Is it? Do you feel like do you already know of a way to break it, or are you thinking through?
Well, since he hates the gong, that's actually the most viable mode is save an, which we probably need to score balance for the pro. But yeah, so save an, if the more shots you hit before hitting the gong, the more it's worth. And then at the end, there's a hurry up based on all those values you collected.
We
so-
discovered that one earlier.
Yeah, so if you're on a
But
pro, that's
don't
probably
tell
easy.
Keith that we know it though. So
Oh
doesn't-
yeah, he won't
so
quote that out. Yeah. Who's all on software? I know Rick Nagel, but who besides Rick?
Joshua Henderson.
Okay, who blew it up on stream
Yeah,
the other
He's
night.
a
night.
world-class player.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
he knows what he's doing.
So
yeah.
Gieske is not on this.
Nope.
Oh man. Okay.
She's dragging dungeons.
She's okay. She's dragging dungeons. Wow. Well, good for her. But what else do we got?
I mean,
Tom's just in-
it's just a great game overall. I mean, playing it, and we've talked about that before. That for you, to me, it's like when I see this layout, it feels like something that's different but familiar to me. Right? There's just a lot of callbacks that I see from like Bally Williams days, and I see it pulled into the modern era. And to me, that's not something that we typically see for modern pins that works. Right? It all still feels like it works. It doesn't feel like it's Frankenstein together to where you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. It all feels really good. So I know it sounds like I'm sucking up to you right now, but I've been very,
It feels good,
I've
but
been very
it does
impressed by it.
not feel like anything else out there.
Exactly.
It's unique for
It's very
sure.
unique.
And
Yeah.
I think people are going to find that out as soon as they start playing it. It's just, I haven't seen a layout like this to where it's very difficult to show what this is,
Mhm.
like on video, in a trailer. You have to see a full gameplay. You have to play it yourself, and it really, really shows it off. Just the ball pass, the shots, they're smooth. And I love the return to the upper flipper, the right flipper. We've talked about that a lot. He figured it out to where that ball does not spin away. It's clean every time.
No.
And that makes the game feel so much better because those 2 shots, the side ramp and then the U-turn, are accessible
Yeah.
all the time. You're not reliant anymore on just a good feed. You have a great feed every time. So no excuses now. You got a clean shot. You got to hit the shot.
How much tweaking did that take? That whole
Well, we originally did have a keyhole exit drop off to the upper flipper, and it's just I remember from Avengers sometimes it would just drop it nicely, other times it would throw it sideways on you, and we took that lesson and it's like, hey, we need to rethink this, so let's try this. It's something that pushes it up. And Harrison was, that's not a very steep ramp, but the ball's really slow. We can try it. And then we tried it, and it's like, oh, yeah, this does work.
So there's the end of the wire form on the, what do you call that wire form?
It's the cliffs ramp.
The cliff ramp. Okay,
Yeah.
so that it's at an angle in the way that, and there's a rubber there,
Mhm.
so it bounces the ball up. But not only is the feed there really good, but also the feed from the kickback or the punchback, that shot, I'm assuming that took a little bit of tweaking to get that to work.
No,
No, first try.
First try.
First try.
That's why I think it's going to become industry standard at this point.
Is
Like just that return, the way it feeds the flipper and just makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
I mean, why do anything other than that now?
that's a
Well,
good point.
I mean, it only works on something like that. You're not going to feed a bottom flipper like that.
Right. But I mean, up there, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I know if I design a pin, I'm still in that. I'm putting that like in 5 different spots because it works, right?
Yeah.
So the left orbit, it only is an orbit from the left side. Is there I'm assuming it's elevated,
yeah.
so it kind of falls.
It jumps. Yeah, it jumps over, lands underneath Kong, and then wraps around to the upper right flipper.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Okay.
Have we decided what we're going to call the upper flipper yet with the log? Can we call it flip log or log flip or
No,
something?
we haven't patented.
I don't
that.
want to keep saying the diverter up by the mini flipper. Like we got to have a term for it. And there's no
Well,
term yet.
Well, because
log
in the
diverter,
story, they're crossing a chasm on a log that had fallen across the chasm.
Okay. So
So-
chasm flipper? Well, that doesn't roll off the tongue as well.
You have a few actual patented things. Being you patented flip lock, right?
Probably.
Oh yeah,
I don't
I'm
know.
curious if there's something here in Kong that you patented.
Somewhere
but-
American Pinball's like we're bringing it back. It's ours now.
I don't know because the legal department looks over it and they decide all that stuff. So.
Tom did ask me yesterday. He asked, "Do you wish, Joel, that Kong had extra flipper buttons that enabled you to tap pass?"
Yeah.
And I was
Oh.
curious if you've thought of adding those into your games. Yeah,
Because Joel needs them.
I need it to Wild Tom.
That's all tournament players need. He's like, hey, let's make this easier.
What else? I do feel like I need to apologize. We have brought attention to the size of your calves. I think you're aware of that.
Oh my god.
It was
Everybody's
purely
coming up to Travis.
at the expense of Travis.
What are you apologizing
So-
to Keith for?
I mean,
I
you
was
should
just
be
gonna say that.
apologizing
he's got to
to
walk around with
me.
those every day, and
Yeah.
people Google him. You wear pants now, so
He's never wearing shorts again.
he's never.
I wore shorts for one day at TPF.
One day.
And
Yeah.
it took like a dozen pictures with
everyone
other
take it.
people. Everybody.
So Bash at the beach, you're wearing pants.
He's wearing
I'm gonna,
pants from
next
now
year
on.
I'm gonna wear a thong, Tom. I don't
Wow.
care.
Wow.
We're gonna go all in.
Well, do you guys have anything else for Keith? He's a
No,
busy man.
we
I don't
took
want to
all this
slow him
time.
down
I know.
from
We
getting
need the
games out.
LEs off the
Yeah, I
line.
was
Post
just gonna
pass.
say that.
Post pass.
You can do it. I've done it.
You can.
I did it, and that's
So this is the major departure from all my other games. The flippers are offset to the right,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and the slings are closer together than anything I've done.
Well, there's one other major departure.
Center
too.
post.
Yes.
Center post.
When
yes.
did
center
you
post
add?
in it.
Was that always a plan, or when did you throw that in there?
Yeah.
Always a plan.
Yeah, George is against it, and I said, "Well, I need it for the center ramp." And then Jack's like, "Dude, if you're putting a center post, I'm putting a center post on X-Men."
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Then they after X-Men went out the center post, I was like, "Yep, this has to stay."
Yeah, I was surprised that I hit something in the back left and still
I bet you were, buddy.
still missed. I was like, I trusted that center post. That ball went the entire length of the playfield, and somehow I drained. There is a target. It's on the bottom edge of the drops. I think it's called Power Up. There's a
Yes,
tiny
yes.
little target. What does that do?
Nothing yet.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, you found it though.
I did. I mean, it's in
yeah.
it's in a very unique spot that
You might be like one of 5 people that even realizes it's there.
I looked at the playfield. I know
That's
you only
impressive.
look at the first 6 inches of a playfield, but I looked at all of it. I looked at all of it.
okay.
I
fair.
love center posts. I always have.
Really?
This just adds an element. Being able to knock the ball back. The very first pinball machine I ever owned was Xenon. And it wasn't a center post, but it did have a post that was kind of angled off a ramp reject at a weird angle, but it worked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if the ball's coming down at that angle, you can use that post to get it back up. And I was like, it's a skill.
Yeah, and I forget who did it, but over on the left side, the fact that you have in lane, out lane, in lane, essentially, I saw somehow the ball went down the out lane, but there's you added a post down there that they were able to nudge it back in.
Yeah.
And it's way harder than the nudge on Jaws. I mean, but it looks doable, and I'm excited to see somebody pull that out in a tournament to keep their ball.
It is intentionally a bit harder than the one on Jaws, but it's there.
Okay.
The other cool thing with the center post, if you drain just right, it hits the center post, goes up the left out lane, and then through the gate.
Well, Jaws, I know you had mentioned it on Loser Kid that you're still clipping Jaws videos.
Yeah.
So there's more to do there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're still chipping away at it.
Clip
The problem is
videos.
it's a it's not a minor update,
yeah.
so it's not something we want to rush out and just all right, it's done.
It's
So-
the final wizard mode, right?
Oh, there's 2,
Okay. All right.
and then
I haven't
we
got
have
to
some,
it.
we have some other surprises.
I know
yeah.
we made eye contact. That's good enough for
Yeah.
me. I don't say anything.
No, that's awesome. Well, more to come. I know Loser Kid asked you about accessories, so we're curious to see about that. I'm looking forward to streaming it. I know you'll be making content. I think
When's the
you're in.
LE's coming out?
I know. Tom wants like 5 LEs.
Have you committed to an LE?
Yes.
Okay, last night you didn't seem like you had committed, but
Yeah.
Oh no,
I-
I was
okay.
committed.
He was
fully
just playing
committed.
with your
he was
heartstrings.
Yes.
playing with
He
it.
was
I was
playing
like,
it up for the crowd and all
I
that.
was like, you're telling Tom's about to buy a pro on this game? I didn't think so.
Tom might get a pro, premium, and LE.
Just get
for
them
this
all.
game. Might
You're
as
going to
well.
get a premium and take out the gong because you're scared of it.
I don't mind the gong. It's the spider that freaks me out.
The spider? Oh.
Spider freaks you out?
Well, yeah. Have you ever seen Arachnophobia?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
So
scary.
you're scared of spiders?
Well,
You know it's not
But-
a real spider, right?
but I like John Goodman, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You need to release an accessory of a different something to put there.
I just need to put googly eyes on
Does
the
Googly
Monica-
eyes on the
spider.
spider.
Does Monica
Fine.
kill the spiders for you, Travis?
Yeah, he should.
Maybe.
Well, Keith, we appreciate you, man. I don't want to take any more of your time. I'm not
All
trying
right.
to kick you out, but you said 15 minutes and we're at 26. So,
We're rocking it.
yeah. But
right.
no, this game's awesome.
I
I'm
think
excited
George
for more
was
people to
looking
play
for
it.
you too.
And oh yeah, he wants you to get back to work. But no, this I home run is overused, but our initial impressions are nothing but positive, and
Yep.
I
Yes.
have no doubt that people are going to enjoy this game.
Great.
Yeah,
That's
Awesome.
All right, we're back. We've Tom feels we've taken over Stern. We've taken over Stern. It was awesome talking to Keith, and we said, Keith, who else should we interview? And you were the first person he thought of. He said, you should talk to Chuck.
The very first one.
Yeah, you were the very first one, and we said, okay.
That sounds good.
So this is Chuck Ernst. He is the CG art director. So
Yeah,
not
video art director, not to be mistaken for the cabinet, Playfield, banners, everything else that's 2D that you see in the in the hallways at the trade shows, all that stuff. That's handled by Jeremy Packard's division now,
yeah.
and I handle the graphics. But we're kind of a catch-all for we do some of the stuff for promotional, like marketing, and we also do a lot of the sculpts that you see on the Playfield. Because a lot of us came from video games and digital sculpting and model making for characters design and stuff like that. So it kind of all overlaps. So whenever we get into a situation, we'll get a model from from the licensor and go like, hey, here's the model, and you got to pose them and get them to work in a different environment. We'll generally do that in my department. Anything that's 3D kind of falls into our camp. So a lot of ex video game guys
Yeah.
that got sick of the grind,
Yeah.
and also the fact that they make a product that is on a phone, and you're like, what do? I do this thing. Hold on, it's in the App Store. It's just not the same as a giant cabinet that you can point at and go, I made this thing. So it's a good job for people that are just sick of working 95 hours a week making. In my case, I worked on Mortal Kombat for 17 years. Blood and guts and stuff was my specialty. Physics for intestines flying out of people. And
So you were my entire childhood.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So working on this is we get it's a little different. Every game's different. We make 3 to 4 products a year, so it's not the same grind over and over. It's always a variety. A lot of problem solving.
So you're over all the games then? You're not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have my hand in everything.
So obviously we're here. We just played King Kong. Had a great time with it. So this is one of those situations though where I'm assuming you were given nothing. Everything on the screen was all you guys, and it looks like 3D animation is consistent throughout the whole.
Yeah, so we try to mix it up between games. If you see like we did on Foo Fighters, that was like kind of our, I don't know, we call it our Scooby-Doo game kind of thing, where it was all like animated characters and stuff. But we got an ex Warner Brothers animator that he works on my team now that helped on that. And
That's awesome.
he pulled in a couple of his friends that he worked with in the past to help get that game done. But yeah, generally we try to do a variety. Like we don't always want it to look the same. You don't want 2 games next to each other to look like it was kind of the same world.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to switch it up. But and then a lot of licenses we get, they have video clips like Jaws. So we have to kind of do the in between parts between those movie clips and make it look like it kind of still belongs in that world.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you can't, so then you have to go way outside of it to like, this is pinball world and that's video world kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's every game has got its own challenges, licensor challenges. In this game, there wasn't a licensor. So, but then when there isn't a licensor, you have a lot of people that are like, cool, I have ideas too. And you're like, oh, I wish we had a licensor.
So who makes the final say? Is that you or is it Keith who makes the final say of an animation that makes it into
generally Keith's opinions or Keith's wants are higher priority than anybody else's, the designer. But usually there's a lot of back and forth where, somebody will go like, they'll show you like, I want to do this scene from Independence Day where he blows up the White House. And we're like, cool, not going to happen. So we could kind of, like it's all about like picking your battles. Like we want Godzilla to like, step through the city and destroy everything. And you're like, those are simulations of buildings coming down. How about his tail just does just whap, and then and then the building comes down, and then we don't have to show all of the street with all the cars and that kind of stuff. So we kind of do a lot of that, like implied destruction. Like big, I remember working on Black Knight and Steve Ritchie wanted 1 million soldiers coming up over a hill.
That's quite a few for the screen.
Couple 100,000. And I'm like, how about we don't do that? And, and it's like you do a close up of like horse hooves and soldiers' feet. And then, it's like the old timey, movies where you just show the same 6 people going by. Yep. And you're like, cool, there's your million. There's a million people, so it's
so
that
do you have to do like a storyboard or anything?
Yeah,
like
so
that?
it's very much like a movie production in that you start with storyboards and then you kind of pick and choose and then you animatic them and then you just kind of get them timed out. And then sometimes at that point you do the animatics, you're like, this is not going to work at all. So at least you made a mistake. You made mistakes, cheap mistakes, we call it, like, early, instead of trying to render out all this stuff and then finding out it doesn't work. And then even then we get stuff to the finished state and Keith will go like, yeah, I see this a lot on the screen. Like one particular scene is like, you'll see it on King Kong where the guy throws the car. Yeah. Then he throws the car. Then he throws the car. And then after you see it in the game, you're like, yeah, we need probably about 4 more of those, so we're not
Other
seeing the
iterations
same
of the
shot
same.
over and over again. So some of that stuff comes after the game is boxed up because you can't really predict how often it'll be on the screen until it is.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And then you go, oh, this is totally not working. Or
How do you balance? Travis here has openly admitted that he hates LCD screens and he doesn't look at them.
Well, nobody does.
That's what I'm saying. Not invalidating everything you do, but he doesn't like it.
I like the information on it.
Oh,
is
yeah.
what I like.
He just needs numbers.
Yeah,
That's all.
I like
Well,
that.
that's right. What you see, Keith's very much a numbers guy. Like you'll see Keith's games where it's like he's not trying to tell some crazy story. It's like Hulk smash, Kong smash, Godzilla smash, and then score. And then that's usually like the extent of like this is all I want on the screen. And then you got other designers that were like, oh, I want everybody to follow the storyline crests, and then and then you got a conclusion, and then we're like, and then at the end nobody cares. So you're like, thanks.
That's what I'm saying. Do you almost prioritize? Like, how do you find that balance of knowing, okay, the graphics that are displaying during a multiball, that's probably not a moment they're looking at the screen because of the chaos of the multiball, but yet there are other situations where you land that jackpot shot or mode select. Like obviously you're prioritizing moments where the ball is stalled,
right, yeah,
versus
exactly,
chaos. Or you get those situations of overlapping animations where it's like the ball's finally stalled, and then you have 4 animations to work through. So I'm assuming juggling that is a challenge.
Yeah. So we the programmers, our operating system, our pinball operating system has like a priority, and you can weight things that are in there, like each scene or each effect. We just call everything an effect. Each effect has like a weight on it, like what's more important. And by default, like, jackpots are higher priority than, spinner award or whatever. Like, so like those things will just nuke the other effect out. Or if it's like 3 or 4 things that are the same priority or same importance, it'll wait till each one's done and then display it, just like I got to make sure the person saw that they got the thing. But if you notice Keith's games, he does a lot of like throws out everything except for the full screen effects and maybe the score frame. Like he doesn't, like some of the other games look like it's like there's only this much video on the screen because it's just got so much
All
data.
the data, yeah.
Right, yeah.
And he tries to avoid the data. I always make the joke. I'm like, yeah, man, we should get some more text on there because kids love to read. Just put more. Let's read some more because pinball sucks. You need to read. I like reading.
What's the solution then? Because I know, like, we've brainstormed before. Like, I love DMD animations. I just think the art form of a DMD is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But like screen. Like, would it make your job easier if the size of the screen was like wider and thinner, or having dedicated screens? Like you have Bond 60th that has the screen in the middle of the game, or would you want more screens in a game? Would you want?
No, okay.
What would make
Like,
your
do you
life
want,
easier?
like, two
So somehow
screens in the
pinball was
Playfield?
really fun
Yeah.
when the screen had no data on it. It was fun. That's why we all got into pinball.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite the 14 segment displays, but the dots. They were still fun. Like
Yeah.
you go play Creature from Black Lagoon, you're like, oh, this was an awesome game. Or one of my favorite packages is Circus Voltaire.
Yeah.
The whole. It's just an art piece, but also just simple display. So we're trying to get back to that because once you add the screen, everybody wants to play video games on it, or dude, like they just like we could do so much now, and I'm like the game's under the glass,
Yes.
like over and over again, like.
And that's Travis's argument.
That's his biggest argument. Yeah.
No, I agree.
Sounds like Chuck and me are on the same page.
This is
fellas. That's what it sounds
the
like
art
to me.
director. This is the director, and he's on your page.
No, I'd rather have less higher quality
Sure.
stuff than just a ton of whatever we can
throwing
get
it
done
at you.
in
Yeah.
4 months, because that's about how long we get for each game. So
Which is
How
wild
many
in itself,
animators
yeah.
are actually working on a title?
we have 10 in our department.
Okay.
10,
Wow.
10 and variety, right? They're not all animators, so we got a lot of 2D, and we got technical guys, and then we got stuff. So we get 10 people, and we generate hours of content a year,
Yeah.
which is
Well,
like, if you look at like Hollywood's budgets for 10 minutes of content, it's like, $20 million for 10 minutes worth of computer graphics.
Right,
And we do,
Yeah.
2 hours for, 10 people's salaries for a year.
Yeah,
I keep trying to get more people.
What?
So we don't have enough people.
Were you involved with Stranger Things?
Yeah.
So that premium LE situation with the projector and the projection mapping,
That was a pain in the butt.
and because you had all the display, so you had to code it for a pro,
Mhm.
but then you had all the additional data for a premium LE
Right.
that you somehow magically had to work.
Yeah. So that one, I try to. It's one of those things where whenever we spitballing ideas, and you're like, "This sounds like a really bad idea," and they're like, "No, it's not that bad." And then at the end, you're like, "I told you it was a bad." It's a lot of work. So it was like basically 1.5 times pinball machines.
Yeah.
Like you had to create for another screen, and then if it was just that, it would be fine. But then somehow get that data up on the display and not have it step on top of everything was a nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on top of the whole thing with like, you got a projector. What does the projector see from that angle?
Oh, yeah.
So we had to take the CAD files in, and I had to basically mimic where the projector was in 3D, figure out what the field of view was, and then project registration lines on everything, and then figure out where all of those, like, because the ramps are all on there, everything's on there, like everything lights up, and then to get it all, to get that all to line up.
Because
And-
all your rendered content is distorted.
Right,
Because
pre-distorted.
It'll be
Yeah.
undistorted once it.
Yeah. So it's actually
Yeah.
so it's rendered from the view of the it's projected from this view and recorded from this view.
Yeah.
So it's like you want to like the chevrons and stuff all have to look like chevrons.
Yeah.
If you actually see the rendered videos, they're just totally distorted. Yeah.
That sounds like a whole lot of work.
Yeah.
It was.
Right?
Well, I don't know if this make you feel good or not, but that sounds like so much work with Stranger Things. But Travis did participate in an entire tournament where he was playing a premium and didn't even realize it was a premium. He never even looked.
true.
He never even looked up.
Well, okay, here's why. To my defense, the projector works really well if there's no lights overhead.
No, yep.
But if there's a ton of light coming in,
And if you're doing a broadcast or the recording, they tend to have lights on.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
the media
if
for
you
that.
go
must
see
have
a
been-
Thank you,
movie
Chuck.
and the
Yeah.
lights are on,
you
you're
two
not
are
gonna have a
a-holes.
good
I'm going to start a
experience.
podcast with Chuck. He's on my level.
No. So how upset do you get when Brian, Eddie, and Dwight come in and say, "Guess what we put in our next topper?" because they keep putting screens in their toppers,
Right.
Which
So-
means more work for you.
Yeah, so I probably shouldn't say this, but I got in a heated argument about that actually, because D&D was probably twice the amount of content we've ever put in a game,
Right.
period, hands down. But I'm
It does look amazing though.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
yes.
but I've told this to Dwight and many people before. I'm like, listen, I don't think you understand the fan base for D&D is not gonna like. You can't sell them like D&D light or just like or what you think D&D is, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
movies do. You know, this is like
Right, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's Minecraft. Like that's why I'm like Minecraft could have been the worst thing ever happened because it's like you know that crowd they don't want you that be condescending to their thing that they're really into.
True.
And I played D&D when I was in middle school, back in the 70s. And you know, and then my daughters both play D&D now, and so it's a age range from like 60 down to like 10 playing D&D. So I was like, you got to be faithful to the game. And Dwight's a big D&D guy, so like we're like we need to have a variety of monsters. If you're just fighting the same monster over and over again, you've got Doom.
Yeah,
At that point, it's like the 4 monsters in Doom. So I'm like, you can't do that. So when he pitched like a lot of creatures, management went, whoa, just cut it like down to nothing. And I'm like, that's not this game.
Yeah.
In the future, let's cut things. But this one here has to be like all in. And it'll probably be the last game for a while that is that big because there was a lot of people upset about it, but he was supposed to be bigger because Dwight wanted another screen on the playfield that had all your stats on it.
Oh wow, a
Really?
stat screen. Wow.
And I'm like, yeah, because kids love to read. Again with the reading.
I love that.
I was like, no, because every time we do another screen, I try to explain to them that it's like. I used to have uncomfortable meetings with accounting when they go, "What happened?" And I'm like, "You added another screen."
Yeah.
So then they go, "Don't do that," and I'm like, "That sounds like not my pay grade to tell people what they can and can't do." So anyway, like we add another screen, and I go, "This is Star Wars." It's like another screen, and it's like it's just not doing anything. I'm like, "Yeah, because it's a screen. It should do stuff." So then you do the thing for the screen, and everybody gets like, then they're like, anyway. So then. We're not doing another screen. We're not doing another screen. Like, and then it's like Stranger Things comes out. I'm like, we said no screens.
It was a projector.
Right. Well, Brian Eddy was like, I wasn't here for that when you said that. So I'm like, and then we get done with that, and then it's like, in the case of like, the Venom topper, that wasn't supposed to be a screen, so I was not involved in said topper until it was no longer feasible, and then it turned into a screen.
Yeah.
So I'm like, stop with the screens. So it's.
Well, I do know Dwight listens to this podcast, so if he hasn't heard it before,
he
just heard it again.
And I've had just a billion times with him, and he laughs, and he like his joke is like, all right, we got 4 screens on the next.
Yeah,
like, no. But I also think screens are kind of a cop out, right? Like I couldn't come up with a.
This guy's on your page, man.
I know, we should switch seats.
I couldn't
right
come
now.
up with a cool mech. So I put a screen there, and I'm like, no, come up with something that does something.
Yeah.
I like to think of the playfield as like if you could shrink yourself down, like what coolest carnival ride ever kind of a thing. And then when you got screens all over everything, it's like that TV, more TV, it doesn't, data is fine, but I want to see something spin or crash or fold or collapse or, that kind of thing. So move.
So you want pinball to be pinball.
Right.
That's what you're
Pinball's
saying.
mechanical.
Yeah.
It's a mechanical game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never quite understood the whole, like I don't know, like whatever the companies that have the whole screen is the playfield and it's digital, and it's just missing. It's missing.
Sounds
something.
like you want a job there.
No, because kids like to read.
Because kids love to read.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have a? I know Kong. I'm enjoying what I'm seeing in there. I know that's a very. Is it cell shaded
it's
or
not
what's
done
your,
yet?
Like, but you're rendering. There's a not cartoony, but kind of a
It's
cell
kind of
shaded
halfway
style to it.
Yeah. So we try not to. Okay, so I don't know if you guys have heard the term uncanny valley, where it's like stuff is photoreal. So, but the human eye goes, ew, something's wrong, right? Like that's what whenever that's why Pixar looks so cartoony, because as soon as you get into that like Tron, Flynn and
Yeah,
Tron,
yeah.
where
Right.
you're like, it's the wax museum from hell kind of a thing. So we try to kind of stay in the cartoony world. We try to get it to match the cabinet, or at least get close to whatever the cabinet's displaying to whatever. It's obviously if it's a clip license, that's hard. But
Sure.
when Jeremy draws something, we're trying to kind of like look at that and go like, he's always got like a hard light, hard fill light, that kind of thing. And we try to replicate that. And a lot of times that ends up looking like, claymation or something along those lines, where it looks like the renders are kind of real, but the characters aren't, kind of thing. And we try to stay away from humans, because humans are the first thing that everybody flips out and goes, they're creepy humans, right? You get like, they make realistic humans for movies, and they spend $3 million on it, and you still go like, I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
And we don't have $3 million to, we don't have that kind of budget, and so we just kind of skip the fight.
Yeah,
So-
I know Turtles is one of my favorite games. It's a dream theme of mine, and I have zero complaints with the animations. But some people, April, that's the only thing. You have all the stuff in the game, all that in the game.
April was
They're like April. That's like,
and
wow,
also
okay.
the licensor made us make changes, so we didn't have a lot
that's
of
where
control.
a lot of people don't realize
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go like, no, it's got to look more like this, So, and also that whole crowd has some weird fetish thing with April.
Well, yeah.
There's a
You
little bit
gotta-
of that, like, why don't you make sexy April? I'm like, stop. What's wrong with
It's
you?
probably the kids that don't want to read.
Right? It's because they can't read.
Deadpool. I know Deadpool has a crazy animation style, and I don't. It was some interview that said you essentially rendered everything out in 3D and then applied some sort of 8-bit.
No, we
overlay to
redrew it.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Really?
So, and that was another one. The licensor went, you could do anything. You could do anything with this. It just can't look like the video game that was canceled.
Okay.
It can't look like the movie.
Yep.
Can't look like the cartoon, because there was a cartoon or something and it can't look. So is anything that you could draw, it can't look like, or do 3D. But anything else is, you could do anything you want. So I was driving home after that meeting, and I was losing my mind. And I was like, how are we going to do this? And I called George. It was just like at 9:00 at night, and I was contemplating going just straight to a bar. And I was like, I'm like, George, I got an idea. He's like, okay, hit me. I go, 16-bit Deadpool. Doesn't look like the modern video game,
Yeah.
but also, and he goes, where are we going to find artists to do that? And I just so happened, my daughter, who was just graduating college for art, her whole I don't know what you call it, a thesis or senior project or whatever, was pixel art. Like she went and did, she chip off the old block. She's a big pixel art is like everything kind of thing. And so I'm like, well, I got one of the best, and he's like, who? I got my daughter. He's like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
So anyways, it was, so I got a couple of the other artists like up to speed and if you guys could look up the software, it's not a secret. It's called ProMotion. It's by Cosmogo. Anyways, it's the pixel animation software that if you are doing like Game Boy Advance and that kind of stuff. So it's real. We use real software that you make real pixel games with, And so we basically needed to kind of block out all the animations with like 3D models. And then we went in and drew over them to get the pixel look, because you needed, I didn't want it to look like you put some crappy filter on it. It needed to look like real 1989, pixel artwork kind of thing. And then the result was like hundreds of hand painted frames for each character. And so which would kill me, because like, you get on Pinside, and Pinside's like, Stern totally skimped out and cheaped out and went off easy on making this whatever. I'm like, he has no idea. It was 4 times harder.
It's cost per pixel, clearly.
Yeah. It's like if it was 3D, it would have been done in half the time.
Wow.
But we wanted it to look like it was hand drawn, and so we hand drew it. And everything you see in there is all hand drawn. There's no filters. There's no, anything crazy in there. And I'm really proud of that, because it flew through the licensors in 2 seconds, because they were like, perfect.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like anything out there, you know. And also it had that nerd factor. And then then
awesome.
George is like, well, if it's, you got to have 1980 sound effects in there,
Yeah.
And so he's got like a little bit of, you could hear a little bit of asteroids and Defender and stuff is in there a little bit. He snuck in stuff everywhere in there, which was a callbacks.
Yeah.
And it kind of worked, because Deadpool was he's living in that whole Wham. The 80s was his time period. So
Well, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but is there I mean, with all the different styles and all the different games that you've done, is there a game that you're like, thank God it's over? Or is there one you don't like, which was so challenging or just so much work? Or...
So every game, thank God it's over.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can even talk to like George will confirm this too. When he's done working on a game, a lot of times he's like, I don't want to see that game again. And then a year later, you're like, oh yeah, that was fun. And I liken it to like, that's why there's more than one child in every family. Like immediately after giving birth, like I'm never doing that again. And then a year later, that wasn't too bad. And then you're like, oh, I got 2 kids now. Oh, that's right. I'm never doing this again. But yeah, there was just a few moments where it was just like, and we're much better now. Like everybody's seasoned, and we got some designers that are not insane. and so it's a lot better now where everybody's kind of like, just tell me what you can do, and then we'll work around that. Where when I started here 10 years ago, it was just like, this is how we make this. You need to do what I tell you to do, and I'm like, it's never gonna ship, and then you're gonna be the guy that didn't ship the game, So I don't want to have to answer to like management on like why the game didn't ship, but you will, So yeah, it's every game is a challenge, but like I've said before, every game is different. So you're not doing the same, like Mortal Kombat. I did Blood and Guts, and then Blood and Guts, and then Blood and Guts.
Yeah.
My joke is, if you saw my search history at work, they'd call the police because it's just like gore like all day. Like, what is this? Skulls. Forensic files, stuff like that. And you're like, this guy's got a problem. But yeah, no, it's all of them have like a challenge, which is a blessing in from just not getting bored with what you do, but also sometimes it's hard. But I also like figuring out the workaround. Like, this is never going to work. How do you make it work? And then sometimes it comes to you like in the morning, you're like, hey, what if we just not do that and do this other thing, and it'll be the same result, So a lot of times we'll ask the designer, like, what's the point of the mode? And it's just like, I just need Kong, like in the case of Godzilla. Godzilla smashes. That's this whole mode. It's just smashing. I'm like, what does he smash? He's like, that's you're the artist. You make him smash stuff. I don't care. Keith's like, whatever. I'm like, all right. So we got smash the bridge, smash the whatever, smash whatever. And in this case, they want him to take out the bridge. And it was like, at first it was like Kong, and then the bridge, and then train, and all this stuff. And I'm like, how do we do this in like 3 days? It's like, you put the camera in the train, and then you foot, and then I got a foot in this shot, and buildings doing this, and it's all over. Instead of like having to create this world that takes 16 hours to render, it's all taken care of in like 2 days worth of work. So so sometimes when you come up with a solution, you're like, oh, okay. And then it always, like, nobody knows that the crazy scene that you had planned. And so it's kind of nice. Until you do one of these podcasts when you're drinking Jack and then spilling all
it's 3:20 in the afternoon, everybody, if you want to
spilling the secrets.
Somewhere, Joel.
Yeah. Elvira, you had, was this the last, I think I had heard that there was like one of the last times that she had Cassandra had become Elvira, and you got film footage from that. Yeah. And then you guys, so are you a part of any of that, like the filming of any of that?
No, so Paul Chemnankit, another guy that worked on Mortal Kombat back in the day, I pulled him in, I sucked him into this world. That was one of the first projects he was on here, and he flew down, was it Texas? Forgot where it was, but anyways, wherever she lives. And they had a studio nearby, and she put on the outfit and did the whole thing. She had something like 1,800 lines or something like that. And she is the most professional, like hands down, like the most professional performer. She just cranked like through these lines. And then like every once in a while a plane would fly over and she'd go, all right. And then she would just hit it again. Like she was directing herself, and Paul was like directing her on like, I need you, this, whatever. So, but it turns out she was supposed to be like on the couch, and turns out the couch got auctioned off or cut up into pieces and sold something. It doesn't
cut up and shipped with the SEs. I think it was already cut up by then, right? So we didn't have the couch. So
3D rendered the couch, and then composited her on the couch, and so that whole thing is fake. So she was just on a green screen, just on a big, on a couch with green screen tarp over it, and we filmed her on that
for 1,800 lines. Yeah.
Yes, but that was it's still one of my favorite games, just because the simplicity that. It's a really well designed game, and Lyman, killed it. And Greg Ferris is, one of my favorite artists. Very clean, his artwork was very clean on the side of the cabinet. It was very much just Elvira spiral, nothing going crazy. I think it's just a really good art piece too, and also because she was so involved in it, all the audio call outs, and all the video content was, from her. It's all not open source, it's the term of public domain.
Oh, cool.
Video that she put in her own DVDs as like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we just used the same videos, same movies that she used, and then had her do like commentary the way she did on the DVDs, but in the game. So yeah, that was fun. And I know so many people that have the first two Elviras, and they're like, I got the first two, I have to have the third.
You gotta have House
and they all have to be they have to be in a row, So I bet you we sold probably 100 to just people that had the two other ones,
Yeah.
Sight unseen, just because they needed all three.
Yeah.
So.
Well, maybe we'll just end on, unless you guys have any specific questions, but what's your do you have a favorite like animation or a favorite clip or something that pops up on one of your games that just makes you smile every time you see it? Kind of like we just saw Kong eat the ball.
Right.
You get an extra ball. He eats a ball.
We need to now. Everybody's got to eat the ball now.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, T-Rex.
Yeah.
Got to eat the ball because everybody throws a fit about the ball now eating.
Yep.
The
Sharks got to eat the ball. Yep.
Sharks got to eat the ball. Everything's got to eat the ball.
Yep.
I think the one I'm probably the animation, and I didn't do it. Is Alex Bore is another artist that I go way back with. He freelances every once in a while on projects with us. He's the one that did it, but it was Fourth Wall Deadpool.
Yeah.
That was a static image.
Oh,
really?
And it was all puppeted with vertices. Like if you guys are on top of the whole 3D thing, it was because of memory constraints. We couldn't play flip books that were as big as the screen, as big as that thing would have to have been. And so it was basically just a puppeted single image that looked like it was 3D.
Yeah.
And it was such a trick that it was it solved so many problems because this thing had to stay in memory and come up whenever it was called.
Yeah.
So it took if it was an animation, it would have taken up like too much memory and it wouldn't have worked. And so I came up with the idea of making it a puppeted thing, and then Alex is like, I could crank that out, and then he has like something like 600 call outs that it's all synced to and animated to. So that one, and then the other one, which people, again, because nobody watches the screen, is the if you look at Aerosmith, it like everything is synced. It's all lip synced to the songs, everything on there, because nobody wanted to see like Aerosmith today. They want to see Aerosmith like they remember them, back in the day.
Right.
And so when it came down to, we couldn't get any video footage of them in concert. Like they don't own it. Like other companies bought it and that kind of thing. So we had to put something on the screen, and that's what I was just like, we're gonna do cartoon Aerosmith, and Gary was just like, no more Scooby Doo. Nobody wants to see Scooby Doo.
Yeah.
So it was, but we ended up doing it, and everybody was like, this is going to be a nightmare, and nobody's going to care. And then the end result was like, everybody's like, thank God you didn't put Steven Tyler all over this. The Revolution X was the last game he was in, and that was like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but that one there, like from a technical standpoint, to get all those animations to be synced, and all the band and the guitar to kind of look like they were actually playing the instruments. For a bunch of people that don't play instruments, that was quite a feat. Sure. Wrote some custom tools in Python scripts and stuff to make that happen, and it worked. So those are of course that was one of the very first video effects that we did on the screen, and then everybody wanted to see everything on the screen. So it was like it was a lot of pressure. That and Batman 66 were the two first Spike 2 screen games.
This was back in 2017 or sometime around there.
Yeah, like 2017. Yeah.
Well, I lied. I have one more question for you,
Okay.
which is we're good friends with Ray Day, or I assume we're friends. Maybe he
that
hates
guy?
me. But I know Ray, whenever I message Ray, it's like, how do I do this? And he's like, read the freaking screen. Because he's like, I do all this work to put the text on the screen.
Yeah, he does text. He fills the screen with text.
He does, but I do need to give him a shout out because everything that he's done in Metallica is fantastic. And I will say the art direction that you went, like, I like DMD, so I like Metallica's animations.
Oh,
but
right.
the fact that you took the DMD animations, made them 3D, but made them stylized in this black and white, gritty style, fantastic.
Total accident.
Really?
Yeah.
How was that a total accident?
Well, okay, so Reese Cooper did the art, right?
Yep.
And he the way he does art, he does all the art pen and ink, and then at last minute he decides what the colors are.
Okay.
He doesn't finish a piece and then finish a piece. It's all this holistic approach to the art thing,
right.
which is that's his art style and that's how he does it. Great, but that doesn't give us anything to work on. Like, so when we started that project, all I had was black and white pen and inks.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, what's the color scheme? And they're like, we haven't decided yet. I'm like, oh, Jesus. I'm like, okay, we're going to go black and white for now, and then we'll color it when you color it. And then I'm like, but until then, like, a lot of times when we show stuff in production, you get a lot of people that don't understand, like, process that'll go like, is this going to be color? Or they'll always ask stuff. So you're always, whenever we show work in progress stuff, it's always kind of a hit or miss depending on who the audience is. And in that case, we had all black and white in the game, and everybody lost their minds and went, "That looks done." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I meant. It's exactly what we were going for with the done." And then we have a couple of color things that pop up on it, but just rarely to accentuate certain things. But it's we went with that, and the whole idea was like kind of your Frank Miller,
Sin City kind of thing.
Sin City kind of a vibe, and we had to do it in all 3D because there was 2 games stacked on top of each other, so we had to split the team, and so half of us were working on X-Men, half of us were working on Metallica, and so we went all 3D because because X-Men was a 2D nightmare. We had no content for X-Men. The licensor gave us nothing, so we all had to learn how to draw comics,
which is a shame because the X-Men that latest animated show just came out, which was fantastic.
Right.
So I know I'm a huge X-Men fan, so I was like, oh, if they get access, nope, it's you had.
No, well, they told us specifically don't make it look like that because that's a separate license. That's X-Men 97 was its own thing.
Yep.
Well, according to Pinside, it's all the same.
Yeah. According to Pinside.
Oh God, I love Pinside.
Yeah,
it was like there's everybody there is a pro. Like the joke I always tell is like that Pinside. They're like, Stern is so stupid. Why didn't they get the whatever like in Aerosmith? Why didn't they get Dream On? It's a no-brainer. And I'm like, the Dream On this song costs more than the entire other license with all the other music. One, and they don't own it, right? It's Sony or whatever. Yeah. So I'm like, I don't come to Best Buy and tell you how to do your job, whatever. Just like
the little bit that I've learned in a few years of doing this is most decisions that Pinsiders have. You guys already had that idea, and it's typically a licensor or a cost, like a license. It's always related to licensing.
Pinside is license free. That's the difference.
Right. Yeah,
they forget that part. They're license free. They have no budget constraints.
None.
Right. No.
They have unlimited.
But they're
labor.
also super mad if the costs if you're like, cool, we got Dream On. Now your pinball machine is $12,000.
Yeah.
And they were like, there's a cash grab or whatever. You're like, oh, really? Now it's a cash grab. I mean, if we actually had to pay for all of the ideas you guys had, you couldn't afford this. This wouldn't be we were very cautious about the decisions we make to try to keep the games as affordable as we can.
Sure.
And it gets harder and harder now with the steel costs. Everything's gone crazy. Yeah. So we try to keep it in that realm of not everything in the kitchen sink.
Yeah, that's why you don't have 4 screens like
right.
Dwight wants. You only have the 1 screen.
Well, ironically, the screens are cheaper than the mechs.
Oh,
so that's why they were like, they blow their budget, and then they were like, I got $30 left over.
Yeah.
Screen.
Yeah.
You're like, no. How about just
Can the screen be a solid color at all times? Yes.
On the Pro.
Yeah.
It'll be a piece of plastic with a sticker on it, and then everybody will go like, no, don't do this. Stop with the stickers.
Well, we very much appreciate your time. I don't know what Keith told you how long you'd be. You probably said 5 minutes.
No,
but
he's just get in there.
Oh,
So
well, thank you.
I just do whatever Keith asks.
Oh yeah, yes, sir. Yes,
He's the goat.
Yeah. No, and everything. I mean, everything we're seeing so far in King Kong looks fantastic, and obviously you've been a part of Stern for a long time. So congrats on there's a whole catalog of.
I was just telling the game when you see all the machines in one. Generally, we don't have like at the previous building. We didn't have a room to have everything we made.
Yeah.
Out there, and you walk past it, and you're like, I've worked on over 30 titles in 10 years, compared to the video game world where you work on one every like 3 years, so it'd be like 3 titles. This is like 10 times that, and sometimes I'll see an animation I did and I don't remember it, of like actually making it, I'm like,
wow.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I totally forgot I did that, so it's that kind of stuff where you get called to a meeting, you're like, remember that thing you did? I'm like, no. I don't remember it.
No. Was it good? Was it good? Yeah.
Right. Are you going to yell at me? Because then I don't, I'm not going to claim it.
It's something to be proud of for sure. That's an awesome collection of work. But no, appreciate you coming on.
Yes.
And
You guys sticking around for pizza?
Yeah. That's really, I think that's
the only reason people are coming here.
Yeah.
They're like,
We're not actually recording.
and the
We're all
photo
just
op with the ball.
No.
I came here for the ball picture and then the pizza.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks
All right.
again, Chuck.
Good meeting you.
All right. See ya.
Take it easy, guys.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Good meeting you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Till next time.
Okay. I have no idea how I'm going to edit this together, so I don't know if I'm going to put. It doesn't matter. So
Separate
here we are.
episodes.
Yeah, it
We're
doesn't
just
matter.
we're just pulling more
Yeah.
people in, and yeah.
Look who we found.
Yeah, we found Zombie Eddie, Jeremy Packer. First and foremost, congrats on the promotion.
Thank you.
Your new title is your director of
Studio art director,
studio art director. Okay,
which sounds great because it has like more words. But what it really
But
means,
no raise.
Yeah, what it really means. Well, now I
Yeah.
say that, but what it really means is that I now have to manage fires from the top of the buildings as opposed to the bottom of the building.
yeah. So I know Chuck clarified that he is the CG art director. So it's basically everything graphics on a screen.
Yeah, all the motion stuff.
So you are print. Is that correct? Or
Well,
what?
2D art is what they call it, and we work together.
Okay.
Obviously, like there's times on all projects where 2D art and 3D need to meet up.
Yeah.
And stuff. So, and I've always had a good working relationship with Chuck, and on my projects, I would always contribute if they needed me. And I'm hoping that all the artists that I hire and work with are as capable in that regard.
Sure,
Because
sure.
that would be fantastic.
So I know, obviously, if you look at like X-Men was a ton of, like he was saying, all the graphics there are essentially 2D graphics.
Yeah.
So a ton of hand-drawn art.
Yeah.
You obviously you did all the art on the playfield, you did all the art on the cabinet. How much of your art was brought into the screen as well?
So I don't know if you know this or not, but the way things work here is we're always working on 3 billion games at a time.
Okay. 3 billion.
And at this time we were working on 4 billion.
wow.
And no, it wasn't quite that many. But what happened was when I got done with the actual game art, Chuck their team was in need of some stuff.
Yeah.
And so I actually took like a 3 or 4 week period where they would sort of throw me animatics and different things like, hey, we need this pose, whatever, for this character, that character. As to what is mine versus theirs, boy, that's a tough one. Not a lot, I would say, because they had a lot done before I got into it. There was just, a few holes here and there and stuff they wanted to match up a little better and stuff like that. But
you essentially established the style guide of that game,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, usually most of the games that I work on, that's sort of one of the things that I get to do. And obviously Marvel's been really nice because I've never had any revisions from them. They've always been really kind. And that's, I think, probably why I've done as many Marvel games as I have. Yeah. Which is both good and bad, I've read on Pinside.
Well, we established
Everybody
earlier
here
that,
loves Pinside.
Well, we established earlier that Pinside is fantastic. They know everything.
I'll be honest with you. It helps me tremendously because I can find out exactly what people want. Apparently, very desaturated and simple Playfields.
Well,
simple play.
okay, let's talk. Obviously, we're here.
color.
We're here for the King Kong Media Day.
Oh yeah.
And first and foremost, the game's fantastic. Not only does it shoot great, the rules are out, but visually, we all love the game. So I know this is a unique situation because it's three artists on there. So do you want to clarify, like,
tell us which parts you did, so we can tell you which parts we actually love. We're going to make sure of this.
So this before I answer this question, because I get asked this quite a bit now that people are seeing the game. First off, what didn't you like? And then I'll tell you what I did. And
that whole side of the cabinet.
Yeah, no,
that wasn't me.
No,
I personally, I love the color purple. Like, I genuinely love the color purple. I love the color purple. Yeah. So when X-Men rolls out with all the purple, I'm like, this is so great. And then to see this, I was worried that King Kong was going to be greens and blacks and browns.
So this is funny. Like, if you look at what I've done, and I know a lot of people don't appreciate it, but what I set out to do when I did Ghostbusters, they were still using Photoshop style guys.
Yeah.
Right.
And cabinet sides were real simple. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, man, these people are paying a lot of money. I had gotten, I'd been working with, John Papaduke on all that failed stuff. And I go, here's my shot. I want to prove that we can do this. And now there were limitations. I came in very late and I had very little time. And that's why you did, like, the backglass and translights are kind of variations of each other. Also due to licensing approvals, it was very difficult. Bill Murie doesn't have an agent. Trying to track him down.
Yeah.
We're like, we got one shot. Anyway, so like, my whole goal in pinball all along was to try to elevate the quality of the art. Whether people like the style is another story. But so over the years, whenever I work on a new game, I try to set myself up. I go, well, I'm going to try something a little different here. But my mindset, because I was moving so quickly from game to game, like, there's some overlap, right? Mm-hmm. And there's some things that I like personally. And I come from the gig poster world, which is silk screen, which is why I always love the visuals of pinball pre-Photoshop, was because it was all silk screen. And that process sort of creates a little bit of the style. And what happened over time, in my opinion, was some of my games would have, like, this little seed of something that I just got either stuck on or I really liked. I can't determine which now. And they would make their way over. For instance, what was the game that I did right before Godzilla? And everyone goes, well, it was Avengers, right? Infinity Quest? Mm-hmm. It wasn't. Even though it came out, it was Turtles.
Oh.
So Godzilla being green was all because of the turtles, and people don't realize that. That's a lie. It's a big, huge lie. I was hoping I could come up with more for that lie.
No, I was like, there's no way that's the only... But
in actuality, what I was getting at was the fact that there are things you will see that do cross over. And in particular, when I was working on X-Men, I was trying to do a love letter to 90s X-Men that I grew up with.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of those covers and palettes, and a lot of that was due to the printing process limitations at the time, had those beautiful, purples and magentas and everything. And so I'm like, oh, man, I'm definitely going to lean into that.
Yeah.
And then what happened is when I came into Kong, here's the thing. I didn't even come up with the palettes for Kong.
Yeah.
That was done by Kevin O'Connor. And Kevin O'Connor had gone through and done all of this fantastic legwork to sort of get the game and create this world. But they brought me in because they were still kind of uncertain on, certain, I don't know, like, how do we approach Kong, this, that, and the other? And so Kevin and I worked together on the LE backglass, and that's sort of where everything started to click a little bit. And then all of a sudden, we went forward. But having said that, the smoke on the premium, very magentas and purples, that was part of the palette, but I purposely chose it because I knew it was going to be a large swath of it, as sort of this, just reaction to having my brain still attuned to how I was working on X-Men.
Interesting.
It's just a bizarre thing that in hindsight you get away from it and you look back on it and you go, oh, that's why people hate me.
Well, no. I think it's I don't know. Our art is so subjective. Art is so subjective. Now, obviously, there's a challenge with pinball art, specifically on the playfield, that not only is the art need to look cool, but it also needs to communicate what you're doing.
Yeah.
Do you have any art on the playfield of Kong, or that's all?
The Kong heads.
The Kong heads.
The Kong heads are mine. There's a few other things, little things, some bananas.
Are you the 2.43?
Well, so Greg
had
actually done that area, and then Keith had like a change. Like he's like, oh wait a minute, he's like, I want to do this, and so he wanted me to make a few changes or whatever. And so there's actually. Okay, this is gonna sound bad. I don't know if I'll get fired for this. Yeah. So Greg had the homage to the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, but it's a banana mobile. Did you see that on the playfield?
I have not.
No.
It's
on that right shot. You got to find it. Okay. Anyway, Greg had this trail of smoke that was coming out of the back of the car that looked like banana splooge.
Oh, okay. All right. No, where this is going. Yeah.
And can we say anyway?
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
But and so I'm not sure if this is supposed to be official marketing talk, but banana splooge. Yeah. And so what ended up happening was we're like, and I actually was the one who brought it up as a joke. I'm like, do we really want the banana splooge? And then all of a sudden, everyone fixated on it. And they're like, oh yeah, that doesn't look right. So anyway, so there up that shot. I think he talked about it when you hit that. That orbit, and if it doesn't have enough momentum, it can drop down to get that. So right around that area, I put a banana peel with some banana splooge to signify that you slipped and missed it if you go to whatever. But that was actually for Greg. Because I had to take a splooge out.
Now I know what to look for. Now I know what to go out there and look for.
But having said that, the playfield was Greg.
Yeah.
Almost. And by the way, it made sense to me too, because like this has the most inserts of a Keith game in my opinion.
Okay.
And so I looked at it, and even his arrangements, and I think. Obviously it was intentional based on his love for the games of the era, because he really wanted to kind of do this as like a, homage to. I used homage twice. Jeez.
You did.
You used splooge like
Can
4
you give
times.
Me a thesaurus? Give me a thesaurus.
Hey, we were told earlier that Stern, because of this license, that Stern can actually possibly make T-shirts and stuff.
Oh yeah. Wow, okay.
Banana splooge.
I mean,
and toys.
Toys. Well, I don't know if we want to make a banana splooge toy.
Maybe they're going to be
once again, let's shout out that 12-year-old listener we got.
Older demographic.
For the older.
It's not a good idea.
No, anyway. That's the first thing. Yeah.
It's been fun being the art director for until today.
Yeah. But you probably won't be fired, but demoted.
Whatever.
Right? Yeah. No, it's awesome.
But yeah, so Greg, the playfield is really Greg's, and I think he did an amazing job.
Yeah,
it really, and I saw somebody say it looks like Elvira, and I'm like, yes, of course, it looks exactly like. No, it doesn't look like Elvira, but I get it. It's just the style choice,
sure,
and everything else. But
I know we don't have a ton of time, but I've always wanted to ask an artist the keychains. At what point in your design of a cabinet do you start thinking about the graphics you're going to put on a keychain? Because yours are pretty creative.
Well, it depends.
Okay.
It depends. By the way, I wanted to see if I could actually get one of those. So, on the LE, and you guys didn't get to see the LE, and I apologize. That's my fault, because there was a change.
I have one on order. What's going on?
There's a change to the cabinet front. It's the right change, but because we didn't have one that we could build up with the right cabinet front, they didn't want to show it.
Sure.
And I get that. But at the same time, you got to see it, because it is all the art looks way better. No, I'm not saying it looks better.
Yeah.
See, this is why I'm going to get fired.
But no, the metallic,
it makes things look like $1 million. And so now I got off track there. What was that?
Keychains.
The keychains.
The keychain.
Yeah.
So-
well, I didn't
so-
ask that. He
yeah.
wants to know about keychains.
So when it comes to blast,
Pinball keychains.
I got to get one of these for you, but the LE is going to have an actual lockdown bar plastic decal to give instruction. Now, why only the LE? I don't know. but having said that, I mean, I guess it's because it's the LE. You get extra stuff. But I was working with Keith. It was over the weekend, and like I'm like passing stuff back to him, and I'm like, what's it supposed to say? Like, what's the instruction here? Like, what is it or whatever? And so I worked one up, and I'll send it to you guys. And it's basically just use action button to fling poo, and it's got a Kong flinging poo at you. Anyway, we didn't go with that one.
No,
but having said that, that's sort of how keychains come about too.
Okay, just
like
jokes.
it's just sort of we toss things around. Sometimes there's ideas that requests. Lots of times Jack always has certain requests, and then others were like, do what you want. And
Cool.
so it just kind of happens naturally. Usually I'm exhausted by the time we even get to those.
Yeah.
So it depends, but
Well, I know I appreciate them. I know there's plenty of people that just leave them in the goodie bag, but I look at that as those are the Easter eggs. Those are the fun little things.
I like them.
Maybe one more question, because I know you have to go. Designing for a mirrored back glass. I know Tom over there. He's a fan of the LEs.
Yeah.
I know the mirrored back glass are incredible. I wish you sold them separate. I understand why you don't. But designing with a mirror in mind, how challenging is that, or incorporating that type of effect into the art?
It's actually, for me, I don't consider it terribly challenging, but only because I've done so many now, and I kind of have a really good gauge on certain things that I know will work and won't work. The thing you have to keep in mind is mirror is either going to be reflective and bright and light, or it's going to be black. So when you think about that, keeping it, and you'll see this a lot, and this is the way they've done it for years, is a lot of times you'll see sort of a stroke around line art.
Yep.
Because essentially you're just extending the line art, and that's going to work. So that's not that I don't put a lot of thought into it. I'm just saying, like, as a baseline, that will work. So you start there. Then you try to find interesting areas where you can create glints or fills where you can be, I want more mirror. And obviously logos always, get strokes and things like that. But like, for instance, I plan LEs that way. So like and I know we're supposed to be talking about Kong, but like, for instance, on X-Men, I said, okay, this is going to be Danger Room because Danger Room will allow me to get more metallics. Okay, I'm going to have Colossus right up front because he's metallic. I mean, like, you kind of try to plan things that way. And right now, stepping into the new role, I'm working with a cadre of artists for different projects of various stages, and I'm kind of trying to impart that onto these, and some of them have never done pinball art before, for instance, and so it's really kind of a fun thing to analyze and look back on that I haven't. I've just sort of been running for the last 10 years forward and not, I think things through in my head, but I don't necessarily communicate them. So it's just one of those things. Now it's interesting. I get to kind of look at it differently.
Sure.
And of course, remind them to make sure there's very little color.
More color.
Make sure
More
that
color.
you simplify art on the playfield because people don't want that. I read it.
Yeah. Keep it simple and more. More
I've
color.
also requested from the designers no more than 3 inserts on any playfield.
So with your new role, though, does that mean? Are you going to be drawing less or no?
For a little while, probably, yeah.
Okay.
Until I can get a good sort of I guess control over everything and trust, because I'm not going to take anything on that I can't do the way I'm going to do it. Like when I do something I'll give you an example. When I came into Kong, I did not take an evening or weekend off until this past weekend.
Wow.
And when I came into it was, right around the holidays. So I am exhausted and need a vacation right now. Which I hear tomorrow's Good Friday. That's a start. But I go deep, and that's what, honestly, to be honest, like I realize art is subjective.
Yeah.
The only reason I ever let anything get to me at all is because of the fact that I literally make myself miserable while I work on these things. So to see that some people are not, like enthralled, like I don't care if they go like, it's not my cup of tea. Sure. But when they go, not only is it not my cup of tea, but it's the worst thing I've ever seen, and I hope he dies. Then I go, well, wait a minute. That seems a little bit much.
Yeah, that's a little strong. But,
yeah.
Well, yeah. Sorry to those few Pinside guys that get that upset.
Few? I'm telling you, they're growing.
They're growing. More. Well, the three of us aren't in that crowd.
No, listen. I don't. You don't have to love everything I do, right? Like you don't have to love everything everyone does. I mean, if you do, you're probably a very nice person. Yeah, I'd like to be your friend. But yeah, no, it is what it is. I only bring it up now because like now is like we're under a magnifying glass and all of the most vile comments are out there, and we pass them around to each other.
I know Tom and I talked about this last night on stream that. Godzilla, when Godzilla came out, it caught a lot of shade for the art. But fast forward, nobody talks about that anymore. They talk about how great Godzilla is. It's number one on Pinside.
I guess it was fantastic when it turned black and white, though.
Yeah. That sold everything, right?
Well, now everything's going to be black and white. I read that.
Yeah. And just for black and white art packages, I mean, you just open up the file. You just go to color mode, black and white, and it's done, right? You don't have to redraw anything.
No, there's actually quite a bit of work that goes into it. And a lot more on that one initially, and I actually tried to on that one. I tried to do some embossed and matte layer on the package, and I'm like, this is going to be beautiful. We've got all this stuff, and then we saw it next to the metallic, all metallic. We go, damn it looks better. I did all this extra work to try to make this thing like next level, and I'm like, oh man, the all metallic looks way better.
Yeah,
I don't know why. It's just the way it turns out. But yeah, to answer the fact that you did not ask a question there, I'm tired.
That's fine, and I know you got a long drive ahead of you. So, hey, we appreciate you. Thanks for doing what you're doing. Congrats again on the new job.
Thank you.
Yeah, more color.
No, less.
Less color.
My goal is to, and by the way, I think this is why they hired me as art director, is to get me out of the way. They're like, we got to get him off this stuff.
Yeah. So when Marvel calls, they say, he's not an option anymore. He's a director.
Yeah, no. Hey, by the way, all you people who hate my guts, good luck on them Style Guide Marvel games, whatever those are. I don't know. I honestly, I don't think there's any Marvel games planned right now, but good luck. Good luck with those. I hope you enjoy them. No, no. My goal really is to try to facilitate and bring some new blood here that I think can elevate things in ways that I couldn't.
Sure.
My goal is to make people better than I was. So, I hope it happens.
Yeah. No, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. And
no easy feat for sure.
No, it's not. But thankfully I've worked here. I've worked with Stern for 10 years. And before that with John Papaduke, which is, I mean, that's like the worst thing in the world. And so like when I came to Stern, I'm like, this is great by comparison. And little did I know, it's also awful. No. And then, I'm kidding. But no, pinball's just not a straightforward process. No. And so what I want to do is take my knowledge and insight from the last 10 years and try to help ease people in that may not have been able to do it because of the schedules or because of whatever it is, and just find the shortcuts to help them free up and do good work.
Yeah.
we'll see if it happens, and maybe you guys will be back sometime, and you'll be like, "It didn't happen. What's up?"
Yeah. When were you starting that process? 'Cause it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Or you'll be here talking to my replacement.
Yeah.
That starts next week.
Yeah. Well, hey, we appreciate you. Keep up the great work. Thanks for coming on this and chatting it up.
Absolutely.
I know you got to start a drive, but yeah.
Your artwork is great.
Well, I appreciate.
Well
that
said,
you
Tom.
think that.
Well said, Tom.
I appreciate that you think that.
All right, we'll see you.
Take care, guys.
Okay, well, we just keep finding. We're just moving up. We're just keep finding more and more people to talk to, and thank you so much for joining this little conversation. We have Matthew and Gary, and we're loving Kong. So really, how many weeks have you been here?
I've been here 3.5 weeks.
3.5 weeks,
Yeah.
and you've been here how many years?
Well, I've been in the pinball business, I tell everyone, for 78 years because my father got in the pinball business. He started as a game operator, then a game distributor, and he went to he was in Philadelphia. He went to see a 35-year-old punk kid. I can say that because I'm turning 80. He went to see his supplier, Harry Williams, in 1947. Sat behind Harry's desk, kidding around, put his feet up and said, on the desk, said, "Why don't you sell me the company?" So Harry flew around his city in his little Bonanza airplane for 3 hours, came down and sold Sam half the business. So I say that I've been in it 78 years. This company started, as you all know, Dade East Pinball in 1986. Sam he died in 84, so he didn't get to see this. And then we sold it to Sega, and then I myself and my associates bought it back, and since then Dave Peterson joined us. But I've done all this stuff before. But and Matthew's joined us. We're going to talk a little bit about his marketing, why it's so important for us to enlarge that, and what his background is. But you've asked me, some question. But you guys are, by the way, you don't have to ask me a question. You guys know I just will talk. But tell your audience, let's talk about why are you here and what have you seen and has this been good and have you enjoyed it? And we're going to interview you guys. Tell me about this. I
was just going to do some simple math to say collectively we're at a little over 78 years of pinball experience. Is that the?
Well, that's right because but he's got lots of game experience. Talk about your game experience.
I've been in the video game business for 24 years, 25 years. Started at Activision, worked on really big brands like Marvel and Disney. Then I moved into working at Warner Brothers Games, which has a lot of big IP as well. The DC Comics like Batman Arkham series.
Nice.
Original IPs like Mortal Kombat, and then also more family-friendly titles like Lego and Harry Potter. So worked on a lot of different a lot of big brands at Warner Brothers. And then I was at WWE overseeing and running their video game business. So worked specifically just on the WWE IP. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've been collectively in the video game business for 25 years, working on console and mobile games and PC as well. So a wide variety of platforms, a wide variety of IP. Primarily in the entertainment space.
Zach has done a great job for us. Joe with Zach have done a great job. Largely with the community, but also passed it into just general publication and so forth, and it's some of the like the CES show or trade shows. And Zach speaks well of pinball and makes a great presentation. We need to enlarge the community, and when I say enlarge the community, the games I used to make years ago were a lot different than today. You guys are gamers. You guys grew up as gamers. We had to have simple things for people like me, make it easy for me to get multi-ball, but deep rules for you guys, and let these games go to do things that I will never get to see unless I stand next to Keith while he's playing or something like that. So we need to market to a broader audience of gamers. And I was digress. I was just at GaryCon, which set me because I'm Gary. But Gary Gygax created Dungeons and Dragons. So we were up there. I go up there, had a nice few days with 3,800 real gamers, many of whom the game itself, of course, Dwight really designed it for Dungeons and Dragons players, and so these people loved it. We had 6 games up there. Kingpin was with us, and they're going to go to more. Chris is going to go to more of these kind of shows. But that's important that we market to other gamers and enlarge our gaming community with other gamers, and thus this gentleman has joined us. And I've just digressed with that because I asked you guys a question. Tell me about today's event. Tell me how you liked it. What was so great, and besides the game, tell me about it.
Well, I think one of the things that we talked about this earlier, Tom, when we were doing the factory tour. It's magnificent to see manufacturing like that, because I think a lot of people underestimate what goes into these types of games and how many people truly it involves overall. And I think that's it, because it's like anything else. You see promo videos, you might see like the designer, the artist, you might see George or even yourself, Gary, and people underestimate just how many people are a part of these projects, just the conceptualization of it, the ideation of it. And then once you get to the manufacturing part, just going from start to finish. It's amazing to see something like that, especially here in the U.S. Like, just U.S. manufacturing has just always fascinated me.
We've always been U.S. manufacturers, proud to be that regardless of the politics. We are U.S. manufacturers. We are dependent on a lot of other local manufacturers and local suppliers, and some things that aren't so local. We've always made them here, and partly one reason we never went offshore is we're American manufacturers. I don't want to live offshore, but also, we like our engineers, designers to be right there with the product. Having said all that, we manufacture the product. It's important that we make it. We are manufacturers, but we're really game designers.
Yep.
And if you look at our, creed on the wall, vision, manufacturer's not in there. We are game designers, and that's, and that's what these guys do. And that whole studio of George's does. They design games, and it's all about gaming. It's all about games.
So I think that begs the question.
Which is where he comes
from. Right,
from.
exactly.
Yeah.
So when you see something like this, because I remember the first time we met just yesterday, and I recognize you immediately.
And you haven't forgotten that. It's only been a day.
I remember it. But we were talking about WWE momentarily. Yeah. So when you see something like this and you're pulling in from your previous experience, like, how do you apply that to pinball in general in order to grow it to the type of audience that Gary just alluded to?
Yeah, I mean, there's over 14 million people in the U.S. that are considered pinball players. And so there's a huge audience that we can look at and tap into from a social perspective. So community, to me, it all starts with the community and really just focusing on building that community out, showing them what they like, showing the amazing games that we make as a company. And so really focusing on the community is what is really the first part of the marketing process and approach. You start there, and then you just grow from there, with other activations that you can do in marketing, whether that be like user acquisition or email marketing and some of the other tools that we have in our toolkit. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to, really catering to the community and building that core audience, and then growing it into the more mass market, which is where video game experience really comes into play, because, there's hundreds of millions of video game players in the world. And so being able to convert some of them, that's obviously the goal that I came on board to really focus on, is to really drive conversion of those players, just given how broad it is, from a global perspective.
Right. And do you find that at some way you find the segmentation between getting a new player, right, or somebody new to enjoy pinball, to enjoy it on a location? Is that the goal, to kind of get them like more coin drops for location and then eventually convert them to a buying customer of just wanting a game in their home? Is that kind of like
I think the location is critical, getting people playing the game. Like, the more we can get people playing pinball, we win in the long run. So Gary, I don't know if you want to admit.
On a narrow sense, we have a cycle. And the cycle is that, the 20-somethings are playing in the bar arcades or the breweries or just the local bar. Rebecca's sister and brother-in-law have a pool hall that they've put a big game section into, maybe that's a good set of locations, I don't know, for pinball to have more people see it. Okay, now that 30-year-old gets to be 35, 45, and he wants a game for the home.
Mm-hmm.
And we want him to have played our game in the street, so he buys it instead of buying an iPhone, 30 years from now, because, they're playing games there too. So, that's how you get your first-time buyer, is he knew what pinball was, and everybody knows what pinball is. And a lot of people still say, do they still make them? But everybody knows what they are. 30-40% of the first-time buyers buy a second game. If we can, if they buy more games, they become, like you all, enthusiasts, collectors, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
So we go from the playing in the street, which is our free advertising, if you could say, for the games, to buying a game for home, hopefully not waiting for another COVID, and to buying more games to home, to maybe having so many games you don't know what to do with them, so you go put them out on the street. And the head of the AMOA, they were just retired president of the AMOA, he started with one pinball machine. He went to a bowling alley and said, hey, you don't have a pinball. How about putting mine in? This was 20 years ago. Now he's got thousands of games in operation, and that's his main business. And a lot of the new game operators are pinball enthusiasts who decided to operate to street a couple of their games.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's all part of a cycle. And by the way, when those new operators put games on the street, and they probably put them pretty good games in pretty good shape, and who's playing them? The 20, 30-year-olds who's going to, in another 10, 20 years, buy one for the home. It's a cycle that we create, and he's going to enlarge to a whole new group of players.
Exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head earlier that it's about, like, there's a full demographic out there, millions of people, that they may say something to the extent of, I didn't realize pinball was still around, but yet we see it growing location-wise. So it's almost like, how do you go about finding those people if they're not necessarily just going to a location to find it? Like, how do we go about finding those? Because that will be the lifeblood eventually for them to, convert. Eventually.
I mean, I think it first starts with the building the community out.
Mm-hmm.
So focusing more of our resources on building content that caters to the community, so then they understand that where pinball is at, and they acknowledge that it's there. And so, starting with the community, but then, there's other levers we can pull, specifically with when it comes to traditional marketing. So, like user acquisition, going on Google and Meta and some of these platforms and advertising our games on those channels, I think plays a huge role from a global perspective. We also have a very large email distribution list too. So just making sure we tap into our audiences that we already know through Insider Connected platform. I think that's a huge critical marketing application that we have to leverage going forward. And we're going to build a lot of really cool programs for Insider Connected.
Now, I'm an absolutely horrible interviewer because I started with you guys telling us about the event. Yeah. And so we're going to go back to that. Tell us, first you can tell us how great the game is, because we all know that. It really is fantastic. But then talk about the event. The other influencers are here, the people you meet that you know already or that you haven't. Tell us something about the event.
Yeah, it's basically a community. We're here for with the pinball community. It's great to interact with different content creators. I do a lot of tournament streaming. Somebody else like Joel does a lot of streaming at home. Other people do publications. It's good to interact, but as far as the game goes, the game's phenomenal. Keith Elwin, I always say this about Keith. Every time he makes a game, he hits a home run. The game just it flows great. It shoots great. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, and these media days, this is my third, and I think this is probably fourth for you guys. They're fantastic. Not only, in the creator space, a lot of us know each other because we're all making very similar content, and we're friends, but also just the openness, to be able to pull in people like yourself, interview you guys, interview the design team, really get firsthand experience of these games. super grateful for the overall media days.
Well, right. And I think one of the key parts to days like today is when you guys at Stern pull back the curtains and you guys give us a ton of access. And what that allows, I think there's a lot of people here that are learning just more and more. And then that they can pull that into their content, and then therefore their other people learn even more from there. And I think that's the key. It really comes to just further education on like what is all this, right? Because everybody has their mind made up or in their head what pinball actually is. But then when you see it up close with the experts, with the people that live it day in and day out, that are super passionate about it, that have a few years experience in the industry, it's definitely fantastic just to be around that, for sure.
I know we certainly appreciate you all taking the time and coming in here, and past today or other days like this, to having the interest in pinball and in growing pinball and educating pinball and telling pinball that, hey, it's fun and we're here, because that's all it is about, is fun, you know.
Well, so you're 3 weeks in, 3.5 weeks in, many years marketing a video game. And I know other content creators we compare pinball to video games a lot, but one of the core concepts is, one, a video game takes up this much space on your shelf and it costs $60. Pinball machine takes up the corner of your room, $7,000+. I mean, that challenge alone is something I'm assuming have obviously recognized in the last 3 weeks. Where do you even start on that? How do you this is to buy a video game at this point, you can download it, right? But like a pinball machine, there are people that are having to rent a U-Haul to get it to their house. So, I mean, I assume this is a whole new level of challenges that you're going to have to market around.
It's definitely a different challenge from a pricing perspective, because like a mobile game that's free to play versus, spending $10,000 on a pinball machine, it's definitely different. So, but at the core, it's entertainment.
Sure.
And so, people love entertaining, and if they, with disposable income, they'll be able to buy, a pinball machine. And that's what we're really focused on, is finding all those people that either aren't aware that they're available and easy to access to, the big fans that have been repeat purchasers as well. So we're looking at everybody right now and figuring out how best to target them, how to get them as excited as possible. And to your point about having the space, in your house, that's obviously plays a pretty critical role.
But as Seth says, what's cool about having a gray box under your TV versus having this big, beautiful piece of art in your house? That it made a statement. Makes a statement about you, the owner. It makes a statement in general. But two things to point to. First thing is, and one of the things that we learned with some of our market research, is because it is big and because it's expensive, people who want to think about buying a pinball, their friend has a pinball, they think about it, and they're scared. Am I making a good choice? Is this smart? Am I going to be able to take care of it? And what they need is for you all, in particular, to be their Sherpas, to help them, to guide them, to hold their hand. If you have a friend, and tell your the people listening to your podcast, if they have a friend playing pinball at their house that may be interested in it, tell them, don't be afraid. Help them. Show them that you can get the game fixed and the game has value and you're not going to blow it and your wife's not going to think you're an idiot. She's actually going to have fun with the game. Yeah. People need their hand held a little bit. They need a Sherpa. So that's the one thing that you guys can really do with your listening public, is tell them, you want to enlarge the community? Enlarge it. Do it yourselves. Not just for Matthew to do. Each of you is an ambassador and can be a Sherpa for somebody who wants a game. And the other thing that we'd be remiss if we didn't mention is Insider Connected.
Oh yeah,
which is, connectivity is the future of the world. Without connectivity, it's a box on four legs. And some people like other games from other small manufacturers, but they're not connected. And you can't build a community without connectivity. He can't build a community if we didn't have connectivity. And that's, to me, that is the major future of this product. I just got in Vail, my apartment, I got a gas fireplace. One can put wood in it, it's dirty and all that. And you got a gas fireplace. Very late. Everybody else had one. I've got a thermostat that when I'm going to come up the mountain, my phone tells it to turn the heat on.
Yeah.
I go online to do my Zoom meetings or whatever in Vail. I hit my, connect my, whatever it calls, Gary blah, blah, sign in. The next one is Samsung dryer. There's somebody with a Samsung dryer that is talking to them in my building.
Yeah.
Because that's the future of everything. And the same's true with these games. And you guys know what we've done with it and can do with it. That's the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gary's touching on a really important point, which is social. Like when I come from video game background, like it's all about social interactivity. That's where, everyone's playing. They want to play with their friends and their families. And so that I think is another thing that I can look from a marketing perspective from traditional video games into the pinball community as well.
Meanwhile, you guys are watching your watches. You want to throw us off and do somebody else?
Oh, no.
You're perfectly fine.
No.
We're making sure we're not going to run out of time because we thought we had till 6. I think we're only going till 5 today.
What?
I think, right? For pizza, or are we going till 6?
I think you're going.
We're going.
We're going as long as you guys
Tom,
want to do.
Nobody tells me anything.
Yeah,
They just wind me up and tell me to show up or don't show up as I might want to.
No, we appreciate you guys being here, and it's a fun time. So you guys can be here as long as you want. There's no set time. And
So what I'm hearing is we can stay here 24 hours a day and keep playing Kong.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. There won't be anybody here tomorrow to monitor you because it's Good Friday and it's for us that's a business holiday
I was about
here.
to say, I better not then. I'll get stuck in the I got WrestleMania this weekend I got to watch too.
Are you really? Oh yeah, really?
I'm into wrestling, yeah.
WrestleMania.
That's why I recognize
it's in my hometown this year, in Vegas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And are you
Allegiant
going back
Stadium.
to it?
I'm actually not attending this year.
You're not?
No, this will be the first year that I haven't attended. I've been to the last few.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Jody and I went one year when we were doing the wrestling game. And some people thought, who's the wrestler with the big white head of hair?
Oh, wow. Ric Flair?
No. There's some guy who's a bad guy.
I'm not
Big
sure.
white-
Anyway, they thought I was him or something walking around, except I'm little.
Did you just tell him you're the Gary Stern?
That's
what you should have did, right?
I'm curious. No, that's awesome. But I don't know. 3.5 weeks in, I feel like I don't want to ask you too. Like I know it's probably drinking out of a fire hose.
I'm learning every day, absorbing as much as I can about the industry, about the people, the players.
You were at TPF too, so that was probably an eye-opening experience.
That was awesome. I was really happy to see a lot of families and a lot of diversity in the audience that was there. So that was really cool to see everyone playing the games, and super excited to be there.
The pinball community is honestly something special. It's I don't know anybody that does. Everybody I know that owns a pinball machine wants to share it with other people, and then when they find other people that are just as passionate or excited to play it, that's why I love going to shows, because every single person that bought a ticket to go to that show is so pumped to play whatever game's coming out and geek out about the shots, the rules, the whatever. It's pretty amazing.
I'm learning that they're very super passionate, which is really cool and very powerful too.
Yeah.
To see that type of fandom, in the pinball industry, it's really cool to see. So I'm excited to learn more and keep on doing what we're doing.
Well, you joined a great team. The catalog that's out there of games is
incredible.
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
We interviewed Keith, obviously, who's made some amazing games. Yeah. Chuck Ernst, for him to talk about all the graphics that he's done for that entire catalog. I mean, and Zombie Yeti, what he's brought to the table. I mean, you have an amazing team here at Stern.
Thank you. They're absolutely great guys and very passionate about what they do. They live and breathe this.
Yeah.
And I think too, before we let you go, I got to ask too, it's getting into pinball. Obviously we talked about just kind of the barriers and everything, but did you realize that we were all going to be just this batshit crazy? Just like the people that are just so, you know what I mean? Because people are so passionate about the games.
Yeah,
I love it. It's been, like I said, the limited time I've been here, it's been a phenomenal experience just meeting you guys and meeting everybody. Like the passion just bleeds passion, which is really important. I think it's really important for the business.
It's definitely the lifeblood of it.
It definitely
I think what we all enjoy about it, we all have our opinions, and there's some people with opinions more than others, but what's hilarious about pinball is we all believe we're right.
Sure,
right?
yeah,
I
I think we all realize what we're doing is insane, having all these machines and playing, but yet we love it so much.
It's fun.
And we just like to play with other people.
Well, we
It's
appreciate
awesome.
everything that you guys are doing.
Thank you.
I don't have a lot of pinball machines. I have a lot of pinball machines over here.
Yeah.
But it's insane. I have 4 Harleys and a Ducati.
Okay.
So it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same price range. I hate to tell you, same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I have 2 boats. It's you just don't get rid of one. You just keep them.
Yeah.
Once you have it.
So you're saying the motorcycles are the same as the pinball machines? They multiply quick? Because my wife's been wanting me to get a motorcycle for about 20 years, and I told her as soon as I get to 50, I'll consider it. So
really?
She's
She
been trying.
wants you to get one.
I think your wife just wants you to be cool. And it just hasn't happened yet.
That could be it.
But it's the same thing. It's the same kind of enthusiasm.
What would be a motorcycle I could get for that my wife would be happy with? She wants a 2-seater, like not like little sidecar, but something that she can ride on.
I was in at the last weekend at Daytona Bike Week, because we have bike things too besides pinball things. I'm very busy, and I was there with Ed Van de Veen.
Yep.
From formerly Texas Pinball. Now he's involved with
Pinball at the Beach.
Pinball at the Beach, and one of my friends in Vail had the game operator. He had the same thing. Ed's got a Ural, which is a Russian sidecar motorcycle, which I tried to drive, and it's impossible because it doesn't steer right, if you ask me. But yeah, he's got a sidecar bike, a motorcycle. So there you go.
If you
That's not what you want.
You
don't want
look
that.
cool while riding one of those? I don't know.
A lot of people stopped to look at it.
Yeah.
A lot of people had to look at it.
We all know if you had a sidecar, Monica would be the one driving and you would be in the sidecar. We all know it.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
There you go.
True.
You get yourself. I say get a Harley. So
All right. So I'm going to get a Harley.
Okay.
And next year at Pinball at the Beach, I'm going to ride with Gary. And
There
we're
we go.
going to pull up when the fire
That's
alarm
it.
goes off
That's
again.
it. Yeah.
That's what we're going to do.
Yeah. And Ed, we better tell Ed to bring a bike too. Yeah.
That's awesome.
We can bike and play pinball. It's all good.
Yeah.
Well,
It's all good.
I'll admit, I did more drinking than pinball. Probably pinball at the beach because the whole beach was right there.
Well, it's pinball and beer go together. That's one of my marketing
just
phrases.
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, cool. Well,
good.
hey, very much appreciate you guys sitting down. And we didn't know who all we're talking to over the last few hours. So this has been
Everybody.
amazing.
It's been a great time.
It's
been tremendous.
I'm glad that you asked us, and I'm glad that Matthew came in and saw that you guys want to hear what he's got to say.
We actually
appreciate the time.
We are happy that you're in the industry.
Well, I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, because pinball needs growth, more of it, and just sustainability long term. So that's great.
That's the
fantastic.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
Yep.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for having us.
No problem.
Well, the fun continues. And we've got George Gomez. George Gomez in the hot seat. We're having a lot of fun with this. Now, I'm excited to interview you. There is a piece of pizza in front of Tom, though, that I know he's pretty excited about, too. So,
My blood sugar was dropping.
Yeah,
what am I supposed to do?
Pretty good pizza, too.
I don't know. We'll get to it.
So I
but,
heard.
Priorities. But, George, what I love about you is you're all about the hard questions. So we'll start easy. Start easy, and then maybe we'll ramp them up a little bit.
I think I've told you guys lots of times. I tell most of the people that interview me, it's part of my job. Ask me the hard ones. A lot of my guys, I think in order to not put them on the spot and not have somebody troll them, I always tell guys, I say, here's how I want you to handle this. Here's how I don't want you to handle this. But for me, you guys can come at me. It's like it comes with the territory.
Here's an easy one. What's the next 3 games?
So
you know what they say about Triple Drain? We ask the hard hitting questions.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
true.
We're the Super Series podcast. You're on it. Yeah.
Okay, so obviously we're here for Kong. Honestly, the three of us are all loving what we're seeing in Kong. You've seen a whole lot of Playfield layouts in your life. So when Keith presents you that with the ridiculous ball pass that it has.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like for all your years of experience, it's probably hard to surprise you, but like that's something special.
Yeah, I love it. I love the young guys are bringing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They recognize, they recognize and respect where pinball design has been.
Mm-hmm.
They know it really well, especially, when you're talking about guys like Keith and Jack, they're really great players on top of it.
Yeah.
So they bring that level of experience to the things that they do. And I run the studio with the notion that we want to make games that we want to play.
Yeah.
I mean, it begins with satisfying ourselves. That's all. Every game I've ever made my whole life, I've made for myself. So to some extent, it's kind of. I think it's a really good way to do it because you want to be happy with the thing you make. So yeah, those guys are bringing it. Look, I think we opened some eyes with the X-Men Playfield.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, we're hardly done with that game. We're still, if it's funny because there was four of us were actually literally working on the next code, some of the rules things for the next code today, and nobody noticed this, but the X-Men game that was in the studio there's like, Wason, Jack, Mike Vinicore, and myself parked in front of that game for an hour and nobody noticed.
Really?
And I said, and we were kidding amongst ourselves. We're going, if somebody took a picture of this, it would prove to them that, hey, we are actively working on this.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah. So we've hardly abandoned it. It's a question of, like right now we're not exactly, I'm going to give you a tip. We're not exactly happy with where the future is, and we're working a lot on the future.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to make the future accessible and a really cool thing for the average player. We also have to design some depth into it that it's going to be interesting for advanced players when they get into the future, right? Because right now we're not happy with what it's doing, and so we've been going around and around with trying different things. And we think we have something. We're prototyping. So we build the rule with just representative icons for things, and we don't worry too much about the feedback stuff. And then we start dialing in the feedback stuff, because at the end of the day, if the feedback stuff's not there, the sound effects, the visuals, the light shows, etc., you're not feeling it. It doesn't matter that this rule is there. Right. People don't realize that. Everybody thinks it's about the rule. Yes, it's about the rule. The rule doesn't really come to life until you have all the bits and pieces connected to it, and you're actually, because that's what you actually feel.
Yeah.
Right. You see the light flashing, you make the shot, and there's an associated sound effect, some transformation on a playfield, a timer running, something that's happening, that's some tension creator, whether it's music, whatever it is. That's the stuff, right? And that is like incredibly painful from the standpoint that you have to iterate and iterate and iterate till you get it right. So, but yeah, so I think the young guys are bringing it. I love the fact that they look at each other's work, but everybody's doing their own stuff, and everybody's, Keith is no new designer, and he's not new anymore, but even Jack's new, and no new designer has a signature until they've done some stuff, right? You don't have a style.
Right.
You think you have a style. Everyone begins influenced by some style, right? I was influenced by Steve Ritchie. I think Keith was influenced by Pat Lawler. Everybody's influenced by somebody, and that person, you take that person's work as a starting point, and then you riff, and eventually you become a thing. You get a style. Mm-hmm. You start doing your thing, right? And so, my early games, I was all about trying to emulate the flow thing and the speed thing, And so, play a Johnny Mnemonics, incredibly fast, really flowing, right? That's where I was trying to go. Mm-hmm. But what was my influence? My influence was Terminator 2, right? So it's kind of like I've got a crossing ramp rule in that game. very much influenced by Payback Time, right? And so it's like that's the beginnings, right? You start, that was my second game out of the chute, right? And so Keith has developed a style. He now has a style. He's taken some of the things that I think that have been, like years ago I told him, I said, dude, you got to put ramps on your game, and the ramps in and of themselves are a toy. So create a toy with the ramp. And he took it to heart, you know, right? And so that's a lot of what you're seeing, right? Everybody, we talk a lot about novice players, getting a novice into the game. When's the first multi-ball from the button, right? We work from the button up, right? We start from the button up. Which is why when you see a game like this and he tells you that, hey, the wizard modes aren't in it, the Wick wizard modes aren't in yet, the X-Men wizard modes aren't in yet. Yeah, that's right, because we work from the button up. And so it's like advanced guys, you got to wait a little longer.
Sure.
Well, it's not like they're going anywhere either. You know, I haven't met a high-level pinball player yet that's been like, well, this game doesn't have a wizard mode. I'm just never playing it again. Right. They eventually come back around to it either way.
Sure.
I mean, you would know this, right, Joel?
Sure, yeah. I don't, my high level, but I mean, I understand there are plenty of buyers, though, that they get antsy. It's always that, when you guys are so good at releasing another game 3 to 4 months later. Yeah, so it's when they buy one and then they feel.
I also think, let's be honest, I think here's my opportunity to say hard things.
Go for it. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people that they can't play at the level that they claim they're missing.
That's
honestly,
come on. That's what I was just talking about.
Let's be real. I mean, it's like, wait, you heard on some forum that this thing is missing, and now you're obsessed with this thing that's missing. The reality is, it's not you can't play at that level, or you don't get to that thing, or you don't even know. It's like when people pick up the code's young yet. That's like a thing because you have to say a thing. You have to sound intelligent, so you're going to say,
It's funny you're mentioning this because we've talked about this, especially Tom and I, off podcasts, that oftentimes we wonder if somebody says, well, the code's not there yet. It's like, okay, you ask them, okay, what's the code? Like, what does that mean? To you, like to an individual, does that mean the rules aren't there yet? The call-outs aren't there yet?
Every game we release 100% of the time, dot 8, guys are talking about, it's going to get better. It's going to be better. It's interesting. There's also the notion of the design team has a vision for what they imagine the game was going to be, and the internet has a different vision for what they think the game is going to be. And those two visions, sometimes they come together, and sometimes they don't.
Sure.
So we may have scenarios where we go, no, we thought we were done with that.
Right.
And I mean, and it's not not something real obvious, but there are situations where you go, yeah, I don't know, it's like they're inventing some missing thing that we don't think is a missing thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I mean, we've all just spent a little bit of time on Kong, and it's incredible to see what's already in the game. Yeah. But it is very clear. I mean, Keith was very clear about what his plans are too. So it's like, I'm going to, the first 5-10 minutes of that game is there. Yeah. It's fleshed out. And that's what the vast majority of people
tight.
are. Yeah.
Like
it feels complete.
super tight. Yeah.
But yet, you look at that Empire State Building and it's like, there's 4 or 5 levels in there. And it's like, so the fact they only have 1 coded in right now, maybe 2, I don't know. But it's like, I'm not complaining because I'm not going to see that for quite a while.
Our the other challenge we face is that complete, when we talk about what's the feedback, right? And so you got what are the visuals on screen, what are the sound effects, what choreography with the lights and the devices and stuff like that, and then the integration to what's a rule that's going to be compelling to you, what's a setup in a play event that's going to be compelling to you, it's going to keep you coming back, right? Those are the things that come with time.
Sure.
Right. And they also, I think you really do want us to release at .8, knowing we're going to finish, because we're going to make a lot of changes based on watching you play.
Yeah.
Right.
He said that exact thing many times. He's like, I want to release the game here because he wants to see somebody at my skill level and then somebody at Carl D'Angelo's skill level to see how we play the game. Yeah.
It's totally
absolutely.
real.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're listening, we're watching, we're hearing. and we're bringing it back and we're evolving with it, and so that's real. And
so I got to ask the question then, like, who, when you're using that strategy, like what type of player are you really zeroing in on that represents the proper avatar to?
So honestly,
to see the
we're
rules
watching everybody. We're watching everybody because it
you think it's
me.
George says it's everybody.
We design we design for everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
So we
that is
want
true.
everybody. We want to please everybody. We
Sure.
want easy to master, easy to learn, hard to master.
Yep.
We want, and again, we're talking about. Remember, I said, we try to place our interactive toys in a place that they're accessible to every player.
Yeah.
We want a player to walk up, look under the glass, see something compelling, the curb appeal. I got to play this thing. I got to see what King Kong does. I got to play this thing. I got to see what that spider does, whatever. Yeah. And we want that interaction for a novice player to be as eventful as it is for someone that's geeking out on, I got to start that multi-ball while I'm in this mode in order to complete that mode, right? And I got to stack these things, or I'm trying to pick an optimal path to optimize my score, and there's multiple ways to try, and so we have to watch everybody. We have to watch, we have to watch Gary Stern.
Right.
Gary, did you get the pin? Did you get to the multi-ball? Right.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't happen, then we start thinking about, hey, maybe we should spot him 2 targets. Maybe we should, what do we do? Maybe it's not 5 shots. Maybe it's 3. Right.
Yeah. Now, have you found like the rise in tournament play with content online, like Tom does, or seeing so many different YouTube videos of gameplay or Twitch? Have you found that has helped along the way, kind of speed up that process of recognizing those gaps that you need to fill?
I think we're growing better players every day because the prevalence of the hobby. I watch so on my games, I've been watching what I call a Billionaires Club, right? I've been watching the Bond Billionaires Club. I've been watching the Deadpool Billionaires Club.
Nice.
And I'm thinking to myself, man, we're growing a lot of players.
Yeah, and you're able to use Insider Connected to do that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I'm watching this.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, the skill levels of everyone the more pinball we get in the world, the more people interact, the more tournament play happens, the better people get.
Yeah.
And that's real. That's like. And I'm seeing it because I'm like I know what it was to get I've never done it. I know what it was to get $1 billion, to watch people get $1 billion points on Bond when we launched, and now every third week there's some guy going, I got $1 billion, I got $1 billion. So
that's awesome. Yeah, no, it's, I don't know. There's a lot here to be excited about. I know. One of the things that I'm excited about is Kong. I know Kong is licensed, but it doesn't feel licensed. It feels like you gave Keith the open-ended.
It's really not licensed.
Yeah.
We're like the joke around here is Seth and I were the licensors.
Nice. Yeah.
And so like the team, one day these guys were screwing around there. They said to me, yeah, we got a licensing meeting this afternoon. I said, with who? And he says, with the licensor. And I'm like, what meeting is that? And he says, meeting with you.
Yeah.
I go, what are you guys going to show me what you're doing? Yeah, you're the licensor.
Well, and you've voiced, there's a lot of complaints, or a lot of times when people complain about what's in or not in a game, it usually comes back to a licensure decision. So when you have games like Deadpool, where it feels like you had free reign, or you have like this, that's why I'm excited about Kong, because I feel like you essentially have free reign.
This is total free reign, right?
Yeah,
so this is basically the constraints here are you've got a property that's been interpreted by everybody 1 million times. And as a company, we want a point of distinction. What's our point of difference? Like, how do we make Kong with a point of difference that is uniquely Stern Pinballs, and that we can then do things with, by the way? We can, create toys, license T-shirts, whatever it is.
Sure.
Because it's it's essentially our interpretation of an IP that is unprotected and free out there, and everybody's interpreted in a different way. It's like, okay, those guys did Skull Island. Okay, what's our island called? It's called Terror Island. And what's the look of our island? Well, theirs is like this. Well, ours is going to be Aztec ruins. And, it's funny because people are giving Jeremy a hard time about, the Jeremy color palette. But the reality is on this one, it worked backwards. Jeremy was working on a different project, and Kevin was doing composition for the game. When you have something like this, where you're trying to envision a new version of King Kong, some of that early work is just like prevising. It's just like if a movie company tomorrow said, we're making King Kong, but our King Kong has to be different than all the other movie King Kongs that have been done. And so what are we creating in our world? And so they go through a previs period where they, pre-visualize everything, every element of the sets and how you're dressing the star. And what does Kong look like? We've seen lots of different Kongs. What does he look like? And what does New York City look like? And what time period are we in? And what are the goals? I mean, is Andero, femme fatale? Is she a helpless, captive of Kongs? Who is she?
Yeah.
And so you essentially take every character. You develop the backstory on every character, develop the backstory on the goals of the game. What do what's this expedition doing when they go to Terror Island? And all that stuff had to be created. And one of the very first things was, how do we make Kong uniquely Stern pinballs so that people want, our Kong is cooler, bigger, so our Kong is pretty ripped, right? He's very muscular.
Right. Yep.
He's, you notice that, right? He's got a unique look. But one of the very first things that happened was the lighting. The lighting, how we lit the images was key. And so that spawned the color palette. And then, it was almost accidental that, hey, this color palette, Jeremy can really pick up on these magentas, these hot oranges. We can pick up, New York City, and you haven't even seen all of it yet because some of it's not in there yet. But the way we're going to light it is consistent with that look, and that was part of defining our own Kong, right? So it was a lot of fun. It was also a lot of work because a lot of times this stuff is handed to you. Here's the style guide.
That's what I was about to ask. Do you find working with something like Kong, what was obviously the pro is you have a lot more freedom. Right? But with that freedom, it comes if you're not operating within certain constraints that are known. It's kind of like it's like a whole blank canvas. And sometimes, do you feel like creatively that's hard to sometimes just get out of the gate like that?
So I've always said creativity comes from being in a sandbox, right? From limitations. Limitations drive creativity.
Yep.
So you can't, and there are limitations in this, in that, you sit down to talk about King Kong and, is it King Kong in outer space?
Yeah.
Is it King Kong? Yeah. Are there aliens in this King Kong? Did the aliens come to the island and discover Kong? What? So you got to contain you got to create a sandbox in some way. And that sandbox spurs creativity, right? And so, the challenge was we have to pre-visualize everything. We have to create a backstory for everything. We have to invent, what does Jack Driscoll look like? What's he wearing? How does he sound? What's his voice? What's his character? And so we had to do all of that in all of the environments that we're going to show.
Sure.
And we said, hey, the original stuff in the 30s, Art Deco, we went there and we said, okay, we got to make it our own, but we're going there, right? Empire State was, potentially an issue only from a time standpoint. We weren't afraid to license it, but we were like, okay, what happens if we have to iterate on Empire State? So, all right, let's make a new skyscraper.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And so, the joke around here is that, Drake Investments, from Kong, right? And
Nagel oil.
Yeah, Nagel oil, right?
And I love that too, because it feels like you're taking the theme and you're pulling the theme into pinball.
Yeah.
Instead of taking pinball and pulling it to the theme.
Right.
And I think that's like an important differentiation that I think if a lot of people can see that, once they can tell that, that's really what creates a great pinball game, because it feels like pinball, as opposed to something else.
So when I saw Kong, one of my first thoughts, and I know I wasn't the only one, is my thought was like, man, that's going to look good right next to Godzilla.
Yeah.
And it's because same designer, but it's the same overall concept. Huge monster.
Yeah.
Like when Godzilla came out, did you have any idea it was going to be as successful as it was going to be?
Yes.
So you knew you were like, this is going to be, and
yeah, because so there's a thread here, right? You mentioned Deadpool, and the thread is, yes, there's a licensor, yes, there are constraints, but there's tremendous amount of freedom, creative freedom within those constraints, right? To build these worlds, and Godzilla was like that, right? Godzilla was kind of like, it's Godzilla. He's got to look like Godzilla, and he's got to exist in the world he came from. But that's it. So yeah, go ahead, create. Render the monsters the way you want. Render the characters of the monsters. There was no one there to say, don't. I got an idea for a collapsing building. No one was there to say, no, you can't have a collapsing building. Right. So I think freedom within the context of a theme, and what does the theme buy you? Well, the theme buys you instant recognition from the audience.
Sure.
Right.
Everyone knows Godzilla. They don't know our interpretation of Godzilla.
Right.
Everyone knows King Kong. Yeah. They don't know our interpretation of King Kong.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
And maybe this is something you can clarify, because there are so many people that speculate when you get a bigger license, there's a cost there. So people assume that cost is you have to take that somewhere. So people assume the BOM on the hardware, the BOM on the physical pinball machine is less because the cost of the license is more. So
I'll tell you that for sure. I'll tell you that the cost of a license, at least in this company, I don't know about other companies, but in this company, it impacts. It's a business deal.
Yeah.
So you have to envision that at some point in time, I have to amortize the cost of the license, and I have to amortize just like I have to figure out, just like no different than amortizing tooling or anything else, right? So it's kind of like when somebody pays $1 million for something, you have to divide it by you have to anticipate that I'm going to sell this number of these things. And that adds whatever it is, $100, $200, whatever it is, to the price of that game. So it doesn't go unnoticed. It's a business decision like all the other business decisions.
But does that mean because Keith has been given essentially an unlicensed game, or I don't know what the cost of Kong was? Does he have the ability to put more in his game because of that?
So there's a lot of misunderstanding about how we handle the bombs, right? The bombs are our target that the teams are given.
Yeah.
They're based on some speculation in some ways speculation. I say this because it's a very analyzed and thought through speculation. It's all built around the business plan of the company, right? The business plan of the company says we anticipate that we're going to make X number of games this year, and these are the titles that it's going to be split across. And therefore, and this is the overhead of the company, and this is this, and this is that, and therefore, the target for us to be profitable means that we are going to create a target bill of materials for each team that they're going to try to hit, right? But the reality is that when you get into a project, everybody thinks that Keith has a bigger budget than other designers. That's not true at all.
Yeah,
they're all given the same target. And we see what they bring to the party. Like no one tells somebody, you have to add or remove if it doesn't make sense. It's got to make sense. And I'm the first line of defense, right?
Sure,
they bring me a thing, and they say, this is super cool, and we really don't want to take it out. And then I look at it and
But
go,
it's going to cost us an extra $1 million.
well, I'm gonna say, yeah, it's gonna cost this much, and we have the conversation. What's it worth to you? Is it worth this? And if I think it's super cool, then I go upstairs and I go, you guys got to look at this thing, because honestly, I can't envision this game without it.
Right.
So Keith's actually given you 2 examples of that on his games. One is the Helix ramp on Godzilla.
Yeah.
You said that needs to be in the game, but then he just told us today you didn't like the center post on Kong. He said George didn't want the center post on Kong. Right.
So center post, let's talk about center post.
Yeah.
Right? Sure. So in the era that I came up in, a center post was a Band-Aid.
Oh.
It was a thing that a designer did at the 11th hour when his game was too drainy and horrible.
Interesting.
And so, like, if you talk to guys and you talk to guys from the era I came up in, game goes on the street, it's got to make money, number one, and that means like a lot of conscious design management of your ball times.
Sure.
Like really proactive. How many controlled flipper feeds am I getting? So all my ramps come, if everything feeds back to a controlled flipper feed of the ramp, my ball times are going to go up. Yep. If my, what's the design of my drain lanes? What am I design of my slingshots?
Yeah.
What am I using back in those days? Literally, it was like, am I in white rubbers or black rubbers? Because black rubbers, you have way more control, because they're harder rubber. So there's less bounce, and white rubbers, you get a lot of bounce, and so you get more randomness, less control, and this is why, I mean, it's like I don't mean to, I'm a firm believer that you bought a pinball machine, you do with your pinball machine whatever it is you want.
Sure.
And so it's kind of like you want to put a piece of plastic on top of the playfield and ruin the kinetics that we spent hours and hours perfecting. Have a good time. I won't do that to my game, but and the same thing with the urethane rubbers on, they are pretty, they light up great. There isn't a designer in this building that's got those on his personal games.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but I totally respect your right to do whatever you want with your game.
Yeah.
You want to close down my in lanes because I ship my games so that they earn money on the street. You want to put rubbers on my Deadpool out lanes? Have at it.
I feel like he's talking directly to you right now.
No, I don't do that. I leave the game stock. But the reason I brought up the center post is because your last 3 games, X-Men had a center post, D&D had a shield, and now this has a center post.
So the shield was different, though. Yeah. The shield was not really designed that way. The shield was designed as a sort of, hey, isn't it cool? I can put the shield there and make the shield's going to help me make the shot.
Yeah.
So it was a different animal.
Sure.
And it was also in keeping with that theme, right? Of, those, a shield, earn a shield.
No, it's an awesome
all that
mech,
kind of stuff. So Jack and I had the discussion before Keith and I had the discussion.
Okay.
And Jack, and I said to Jack, I said, listen, that's like a Band-Aid. That's like a bad designer Band-Aid from the 90s.
Center post. Wow.
And he said, dude, you got to flip it. And so we flipped it together. And then I said, okay, all right, you can have it. and actually one of the things that he did is his center post is very playable. Like I find that it's a play feature.
Right.
Sure,
And how it's a play feature is I know it's there. I'm going to try to leverage it. And sometimes I drain because I tried to leverage it.
Yeah.
I tried to nudge it. I tried to use it. I saw it coming for the, for the post, and I let it come for the post.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't do a slap save. I let it come for the post because I thought I was good enough to nudge it, and I was wrong. So that's instantly that's a play feature, and that's how he convinced me. Right. So when I saw it on Keith's game, I had the same sort of natural 90s designer reaction,
were you like, Keith, what broke shot do you have in here, right?
Dude, what's draining me now?
Gong.
The gong. Oh god.
Right.
Yeah.
And he proved it to me. So I said, okay, yeah, you got to do it.
No,
but
I like
mean,
it.
that's no, and I am fine with it.
And like you said, if somebody got it home and was like, I don't need this, I could take it out.
Do you take it off? Yeah. I think that look, part of my job is to challenge these guys.
Sure.
Right, and to make sure that we really have made the right choice, and so. I ask, we talk about hard questions. I ask them hard questions.
Good,
right?
as you should, yeah.
Right, and I think it makes the games. I think our collective internal critique.
Mm-hmm.
We're harder than you guys are on our stuff.
Yeah,
because we think that's what makes it better.
Yeah.
So I don't want anybody pulling punches about what
Right.
whether your game's good or not. I want people in the building to tell us that the game's
Definitely.
not, and
Yeah.
then okay, what don't you like, and let's go work it,
Yeah.
and let's figure it out, right?
Yeah, and I think that leads me to the next question that we talked about right before the podcast started. That obviously it's gotten out there that Tim Sexton, who was the lead on John
Yep.
Wick, is
Yep.
no longer with the company.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people that have been asking about code updates for a little while now.
Right.
And so, like, what state is that game in now moving forward?
Yeah, so it's hardly abandoned just because Tim left. First of all, there was a plan. There was an approved plan, meaning that there was Tim said, I want to do this, this, and this, and this, and a bunch of people got in a room and looked it over and talked about it and said, okay, let's try these things because we need to do these things to complete it. And we're executing on it with or without Tim. There's also other eyes in the building, right? So it's kind of like,
Yep.
and there's guys that there's young guys that are not lead capable yet, and that would be a perfect, perfect scenario. I mean, and we've got young guys that have become lead capable with projects like that.
Yeah.
And I present to you Metallica Remastered,
Yeah.
who was
Raymond,
with Ray, right? Who the next time you see Ray, he's going to be in the front seat. So, right. But how did he get into the front seat? Well, he took Metallica Remastered and he did a great thing with it. Right.
He really did.
Yeah.
It's-
So he did.
it's-
So that's the road.
Okay.
And there's going to be someone like that on the Wick product, probably.
Do you find that Wick is just going to have some slight adjustments, or is this a potential kind of like what happened with Ghostbusters and Game of Thrones, to where there was a considerable, I don't know if I'd want to say overhaul, but there was a considerable change?
I don't think anything's getting turned upside down. I think
Okay.
you're going to see extensions of things that are there. There's going to be a really cool factions rule. There's going to be there's more. There's basically it's an opportunity to take a step back and look at everything you had planned and everything that you're going to do and say, okay, how do we make this even cooler? How do we make this even better? Right. So, yeah, I mean, you talk about like sometimes a game like Elliot didn't, like, I didn't strip anything from Elliot. Elliot brought me a Playfield. He had the idea for the car, idea for all those toys, Elliot and Tim, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. Let's do that. I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's what we're gonna do. And so it's kind of like, had Elliot, it's not like the game is like that because we took something out of it.
Right.
It's like that's the game they wanted to make, and we thought, hey, interestingly enough, I hear all these people talk about how hard that game is to shoot, and when I step up to that game, I make every shot. I don't know, it's like I don't.
I think
great.
the ramps are tighter, but I mean, you can definitely combo those ramps.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
We just tell people just think of it like Cactus Canyon, and once you think of it like that, because the shots are in a similar spot, but Cactus Canyon,
you just have to
everybody
find the shots.
Yeah,
and once you do, like
it flows.
I mean, it's fast. It's
It
like
is
Johnny
fast.
Mnemonic.
It is like Johnny.
Yeah.
It is,
Yeah.
and then
Like-
I was going to say that I'm glad you saw that, because I actually think that even my Johnny ramps are easier, but the speed is on a Johnny level, right?
Yes.
So and that's another. That's like the very first time you ever set foot on a tennis court, you thought that ball was going 90 miles an hour, right? And
Absolutely.
your mind's eye has to accommodate like that velocity, right? And it's like until your mind's eye gets used to it, forget about it.
Sure.
I think that not every one of the things I'm really happy about is that I don't have guys cloning styles. I have guys developing their own styles, and I have guys building the games they want to make. And I think success lies in let's make the games we want to make. And chances are, because you guys live, eat, and dream, and dream pinball, you're gonna come up with something that other people that live, eat, and dream pinball.
And you bring up a good point, because I mean, it seemed like some of the games were coming out and they kind of mirrored some other games, but it seems like lately none of these games mirror anything.
No, I mean, I think that they don't. And that it's always never. They say it about my stuff all the time, and I really want to take. It's like I want to do a PowerPoint presentation where I take Playfield layouts and I overlay them so that you see
they're not
remotely close. Right. So it's kind of like it's another 7-shot array. It's another fan. Okay.
Right.
Let me show you the differences in fan to fan. Let me show you the differences. I think it's funny because I hear this a lot about Sea Witch and Beatles. And I want to take a Sea Witch and I want to show you where I started and I want to show you where I ended. And I was purposely, trying to respect Sea Witch and say, okay, this is a well-loved game, and I'm not gonna, I don't like. As a matter of fact, they asked me to, put my name on it. I was thinking, no, it's Mike's work. I evolved it. I don't want, it's like I'll own that I designed it. I just don't. I want to respect it. And I think that I talked to Keith, I talked to Zach. Those guys had shot that thing a million times in tournaments, and they said to me, "You know what? The most frustrating thing about this game is how hard it is. It's impossible to access the top of the game from the bottom of the flippers." And it was different thinking in that era, right? And when I started playing the game, I thought I was going to emulate the floaty flippers of the time. The floaty.
Oh, really?
Game.
That was the initial.
And I had soft flippers and it was floaty and stuff. And Elwin played it. And, he came right in my office and he goes, "Dude, you got to do something about those flippers." I was like, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, oh, yeah." He says, there's been too much water under the bridge. We can't go back to that.
Well, so speaking of flippers, like, it's funny how you guys made that change with the bushing when you redid Stranger Things. And ever since then, you already had the snappiest flippers, but they got so much more snappy.
Yeah, that was just about fixing the tool, really. Yeah. The tool was getting worn out, so there was like a little bit too much slop in the bearing. Yeah. So we fixed that, but the snappiness comes from some voodoo we do with how we control them that nobody else has figured out yet, and so
that's the biggest thing too. Yeah. I mean, a pinball player will always tell you the flippers have to feel good.
And how we got it. I mean, we got it. We got there because when we were building the very first iteration of Spike, and we had the very first prototypes running. I had Lyman come to see me, and he goes, "You gotta fix the flippers." And I was like, "Wait, what's wrong with them?" And so a player at my level couldn't tell the difference. A player at his level could instantly tell the difference. So I had a bunch of guys come in, and everybody was like, "Yeah, no. Okay, all right." So. And then we started analyzing it. And literally I called the electrical engineers and we're looking at this and everybody's like, "No, it's impossible." And okay, it's not impossible. They're feeling it. So we went back and we screwed around until we had to do the blind, the blind Pepsi, Coke test, right? We like, "Okay, guys, come on in and play these games. Tell us which ones are right." And they go, "Oh, no, they're all right now." "Oh, okay." So we got it.
Nice. Well,
see, I would have thought you were just like putting them exactly the same and saying, "Yeah, we changed them. Just check it out. See how you feel."
No, I mean, I had them. It was super important because those guys, look, man, Lyman was a tough judge. If you I worked with him on many games, right? And the man had like super high standards for everything, right? So it's like, first of all, it like if you weren't getting it right, he was the first guy that was in your face about you not getting it right. And so you could not have sort of let something like that go, especially as critical as it is, which is why, by the way, I struggle with everyone else's games. I struggle, especially, I just struggle with everyone else's games, because meaning games that are built outside this building.
Yeah.
Because I just can't it's like I'm just used to all day long I play these, right?
Yeah.
And I just can't deal with it.
Yeah.
So that's going to lead me to another question I know you're going to love. But Spike 3, I know there was a lot of people that assumed Metallica was going to be a Spike 3.
Yeah.
Then they're going to release it with Keith, just like Insider
Trying to get it
Connected.
right. Yeah.
Spike 3. So are you in
just trying to get it right?
So you're in that testing, because you're saying, from
that's
Spike
exactly where we are. We're iterating, and it's not, it's not stuff like flippers. The system is evolutionary. So, it's a better, it's better processor, better display, some cool features that you've been asking for that we haven't been able to get you. Lots of, better sound package, better everything. Cool new other lighting things that you haven't seen yet, and just more power. We're not, it's interesting. I was listening to Retro Ralph, and he was talking about, man, those guys, they've got to be, the processor has to be like bottomed out with Kong and stuff. It's like, we're not processor bound. We are, the system's 8 years old. We do so much pre-rendering, and we've gotten so good at manipulating that tech that we can do anything with that system that is like you want to see. What's interesting is I was talking to Chuck Ernst. You guys talked to Chuck, right?
Yeah.
And I was talking to Chuck, and I said, Chuck, can you think of a game where we struggled with the performance of the system? And he said, yeah. And I said, what game was that? And he says, Aerosmith. And I said, why? He says, well, because it was the second game that we built on the system, and we didn't know what the hell we were doing. Yeah. And so, we were figuring it out. And the system today has no more power than it did when we did Aerosmith. And yet, and I shouldn't say that. We have a bigger SD card, because so much of our content is stored on the SD card. Yep. That, at some point in time, we had to go to a bigger SD card. But other than that, it's the same processor. And you're going to see not only a processor, more powerful stuff, but also part of the thing that's taking time is that with all of this, you have to develop a new tool chain. So our ability to put content in the games, the set of tools that we use to do that, and to do all the things that we need to do in every way, that's all new. That's coming with the cool new power.
You say like software tools?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So for example, how we put video content in the game, there's a tool chain that we use now, and the current system is very much flash based, and that's an unsupported technology, and that's a proprietary. The engine that does that is proprietary anyway. We built it, so we have to redo all that stuff, and so we have to or find something else that does it and then manipulate it to do what we do, right? Because everybody thinks like when I get a new programmer and he comes from the video game world, he thinks he knows what's up. Yeah. And the reality is that our world is a lot different. It's a good start. It was a good education, but now let me introduce you to real world physics, and let me introduce you to another control layer that's way more complex than the control layer that you're used to, because all this stuff has to talk to each other. So my animations, my sounds, etc., have to be in sync with the device. You guys heard the most interesting sort of weird evolution of this is the fact that animations created in our software tools are now driving our Kong's mechanics.
Yeah,
right?
That was one of the standout things.
So
that
it's
we heard
kind of
too.
like that's a pretty cool piece of unique tech that comes out of things like that, right? So that's part of when you build tool chains, and when we built Spike, we said, okay, it's we don't know what we don't know, So it should be modular so it can evolve with us, right? I didn't know in, whatever it was, 9 years ago, I didn't know I was going to need a QR reader.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know, guys like Harrison Drake were going to go, I need a thing with 3 servos. Okay. And, somebody else wants to put a display on the playfield. Somebody else wants to, we need speaker lights. Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't know any of that stuff. So you have to build a system that allows you to add to it without turning the world upside down, which is essentially what Spike's done. It's what Spike 3 is going to continue to do, right? The node architecture is going to remain. There's going to be a lot of backward compatibility because that makes the manufacturing side of things a lot cleaner and easier, and the transition is easier and all that stuff, right? So we have new challenges, right? I mean, we have the tariff challenge we're facing now. We're fighting that fight. I don't know if you spent any time with Seth Davis, but we're in that right now. We're trying to figure out which way's up.
Yeah.
And we're also doing our damnedest, right? We held costs on Kong.
Yeah,
and,
we appreciate that for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But that's what I say but it's like the power supply in Metallica is different. So it's like, they're heading this is one more step closer to
that's
Spike
right.
3.
That's
What's
exactly right. It's exactly
so
right.
We feel
it's
like we're
the
working
power
there,
supply.
yeah.
We had it. We wanted to solve the silence thing.
Yeah.
We wanted to. We were going to need more power. So you got both of those. We're actually trying to create a kit. So if you want to upgrade your old Spike 2 stuff with the new power supply, you'll be able to.
Oh, cool.
And so, we're hoping that, that's a kit you can buy as an accessory and it's quiet your game down, give you more power, more reliability, et cetera. But I think those are sort of quality of life improvements. They're always going on.
Yep.
It's hard sometimes to focus on them because we've got to make games. And if you have an engineering team, both mechanical and electrical, that's focused on the next cornerstone or the next release, sometimes it's tough to find time to fix a thing or improve a thing.
Yeah.
But we're always trying. We're always trying.
I guess, one of the questions I wanted to ask about Spike 3, just real quick, did you guys think that the way that everybody is talking about Spike 3 and speculating about it, did you think it was going to be that big of a deal to the pinball buyer base and to the pinball community to see a change like that?
No. We love platform changes because they give us more power and it's a nice marketing bullet and stuff, but I didn't think there was going to be so much anticipation for it. I think that because I always think, players are focused on the games and that's a piece of technology that for the most part, when it's transparent. If it does its job right, it's working and it's transparent, right? We just improved the menu system. You'll see it on Kong.
Yep.
We also did a lot of we're starting to pay a lot of attention to the out of box experience, the unboxing experience.
Yep.
And that comes from our experience with the Costco product. Right? Because we have to go into we're going in more and more every day. People that don't know how to fix a pinball machine. They don't know anything about a pinball machine. They don't know that you have to take the glass up to put the balls in a pinball machine. They don't know any of that stuff.
Sure.
So, and that's really our Costco buyer. And so we said, hey, we got to think about what the out-of-box experience is. How does this guy set the game up? What are the things that he's doing? And so that touched so many things, right? Like in the last iteration of Costco games, you guys don't even know this, but you can put the balls in the game without taking the glass off. You can.
I didn't even know that.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't even tell us, Tom?
Yeah. You can do.
You should know these things.
The menu selections, right? And we're probably going to upset some operators, but the menu selections were done with so over time, menus had evolved to be what they were.
Yeah.
And so, you may have guys that remember that, adjustment number 35 or whatever is this. But the reality is that adjustment number 35 might be a thing that everybody does when they get the game and they set up the game. So shouldn't that be in the first top 10?
Yeah,
exactly. Well, or at least clustered together with the top 10 things people do at home.
We're doing a lot of that, right? So we spend a lot of time just looking and, just sort of leveraging our own consumer product experiences, right? you buy a Sony television, you take it out of the box, and those guys have thought through every step, right? Here's the thing, you point your QR code at this thing. There's not even a manual anymore. You point your QR code at this thing, and then it's going to tell you to do this and this and this and this. And so we just thought a lot about that experience, and we're trying to, over time, we're slowly migrating it into the commercial product, because we did it for the Costco product. We have another, there's another iteration of Costco product coming this coming fall, and so we're getting that's even evolving. That product's getting better. Because we learned a bunch of things. We learned, little kids are doing this in the store when they're trying to play it. And
so I guess what would be the most surprising thing that you learned from that first Costco game?
Interestingly enough, most of the things that we learned were things about the in-store experience.
Okay, just them coming in like it's a storefront, seeing
the in-store experience, right? That was the first learning curve, because it's a different environment, and you got a game set up to play, and you've got some games ready to go in boxes, but you're talking to an audience that is unfamiliar with the product.
They don't even know where to start.
They don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Yep.
So again, speaking to the notion of we got to do this, and it's a great lesson, because it's a lesson that translates into, if we're selling 70% of the games into the home, I got to tell you that a bigger number than you'd think is first-time buyers, first-time anything with a pinball machine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. So when I see a post on Facebook and the guy's like, I plugged my game in, but nothing's happened. He doesn't understand that there's a switch you got to turn on. And I literally saw that, right? You guys, I don't know, it's famous.
Travis
it's out
Travis
there,
knows.
right?
Oh,
So,
gosh. I've had to tell people you have to plug the game in
yeah.
to even get power to it.
So what I'm hearing for Spike 3 is you need to make it like a folding chair where the head goes up and the legs just automatically come down. Just shoot, one go, and
well, one of the cool things too about the Costco game that I noticed was just the box that it came in too.
Yeah.
That you had a full picture of the playfield right there. And that was that, I assume it was intentional because of where
intentional
it's
because
going.
we knew, hey, we're going into a new environment.
Mm-hmm.
And this wasn't even a Costco demand. This was us.
Okay. Yeah.
This was us saying we're going into a new environment, and how do we communicate to people what's in this box?
Sure.
Because the box doesn't look like the pinball machine fits in it.
Right.
So it's like we start there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you guys know I'm an industrial designer by trade.
Yep.
Right. Mm-hmm. My formal education was a lot about how humans relate to products, right? What does it feel like? What does it touch? How do I convey a feeling with the product? And so that's, I'm a big driver of that stuff, because that that is the world I come from. So that's, that world still lives inside of me, and I bring it to everything. By the way, I bring it to my games too, but I think that's the thinking. The thinking is, how do humans relate to this? And how do they, how do I make the experience better? How do I make them love these things the way you love great products that you own? I don't know what it is, whether it's your Android phone, your iPhone, or whatever it is, your iPad, whatever it is that you're in love with, that you think does everything really well. Is like, we need to bring this to a product that's going to be touching new hands, new people, and we you've heard this from us before. I'll say it again. Sometimes the hardcore community gets upset with us when they see us pursuing things like Costco. We're all about growing the world of pinball.
Yeah.
We really don't care. We hope that those people are as passionate as our core audience, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. We pray that they are, right? Mm-hmm. That's the future. We're building our own future. We're trying to build our own future. We're trying to say, my dad brought, we want little Johnny to say, when he was 12, his dad brought home a Costco pinball machine, and that thing sat in the basement, and he played it and everything else. And then he went to college, and he said, I want to go to barcades and play pinball, and it becomes a natural part of his entertainment life. And someday he's going to have a house and a car and kids, and he's going to want a pinball machine, and we hope he's a buyer. So that's the long game. That's playing the long game. Not too many American companies do that. We do. We are playing the long game, and we want to grow pinball.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean, it's like everybody's, they sold 1,000 of those things. It's a failure. No, it's not a failure, man. It's like, the longest journey begins with but a single step.
Yep.
And that's the deal, and so that's what we're doing. We're trying to grow pinball every way. We want to support, that's what Insider Connect is about. That's what, that's what tournaments are about. That's what Stern Army's about.
Yeah.
It's about growing the world of pinball so that, when I'm 70 years old in June, when I'm 90, I don't want to hear they still make those things. If I did my job right, I won't hear that. Right.
Right.
And that's what's kind of cool in a way that, even this week alone, on Tuesday, there was another manufacturer that released a game. And it's just like the fact that any game that gets out there, a pinball machine, regardless of who makes it, gets in somebody's house is going to grow. Yeah. And now all of a sudden we all know as pinball enthusiasts, once you get one, you're already looking for what's your next one.
Right.
And,
or you got to figure out a way when the new cooler one comes out, you got to figure out a way to trade that one out and get the new one in. Right. And some people, not everybody's got the resources. Not everybody's got the, that's why we're concerned about the resale. We hear you about the resale value and stuff. And by the way, as it is, pinball still has incredible resale value. I can't think of too many other products, right, that have as much, that retain their value.
Yeah, my car that I used for 15 years, I can't sell it for over the value I paid for it.
I'm gonna try to get my PlayStation 5 over to GameStop pretty soon. See how that works
out. Good luck with that. Right.
Well, we've already taken essentially an hour of your time, which is awesome. And I know Tom's Pizza is beyond cold at this point. But
I'll still eat it.
You could have eaten that pizza while we were doing this.
I'm trying to think of. You addressed Spike 3.
Yeah.
So X-Men code is coming. John Wick code is coming.
Yep.
X-Men accessories
on the verge of happening,
and then D&D accessories, right?
Yeah. So we one of the things that's on my plate from the company, it's a big problem that I have to solve is I want to launch accessories when I launch games.
Sure.
And so I have to get to that, and it's certainly a challenge. It's a resource challenge. It's a licensing challenge. It's sometimes a manufacturing challenge. It's going to become a manufacturing challenge now with some of this tariff stuff. But I have to solve that problem. That's a big problem, and that you'll see me focused on that this coming year. I'm going to try. I have like stuff that's in flight. It's hard for me to do anything about, but stuff that I'm starting up. I have a much better chance, like Jack's next game, I have a much better chance. Borg's next game, I have a much better chance.
Of it all coming out at once.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And so I'm trying really hard.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you do. Thank you so much, obviously, for being on this. Was there anything else that you...
No, I hope you guys enjoyed the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like we love having you here. We love doing this. I've heard so many positive comments from people about just the notion of opening the doors and letting people come and play pinball all day and hang out with us and get to know us. We don't want to be we don't want to be the faceless. We want to put a human face to the stuff we do.
I remember very clearly I interviewed you when Bond had first come out. And I remember you could tell it. You could hear it in your voice. You just said, just be patient. Trust me.
Yeah.
I'm going to and it was so obvious. It's like, man, he really cares. And then, congrats to where Bond is today. That game is fantastic. But it's very clear you guys care.
You
guys
put
care
our
about
names
what
on
you're doing.
them, right?
Yeah.
So we put our names on them. And if we're going to put our names on them, we got to get them right. And so we don't, we're not perfect. We're far from perfect. We fuck stuff up all the time. And but that doesn't mean we don't. We always try to fix it.
Yep.
We always try to fix it.
I think you definitely are more successful than you are not. So you're yes. It's I don't know. It's easy to scrutinize, but today everything we saw today out of Kong is incredible. And
it was a pretty amazing game.
Yeah.
We've known for some time, right? We knew we had, games get a buzz, right?
Yeah.
Well, pretty soon the rest of the world's going to know
Yeah,
especially come this weekend.
This weekend we're at Pinball at the Zoo in Kalamazoo, and there's going to be a bunch of us out there. I'm driving out on Saturday. Gary's going out. Seth's going to be out. Zombie Yeti's going to be out. Elwin's going to be out. If you're in that vicinity, if you're in Michigan or whatever,
I'll be there.
Tom will be there.
Take a ride. I think I believe we're going to have 5 pros and 5 premiums.
Nice.
Out there. And I think some of the younger guys, Michael Grant's going to be doing his usual thing out there, and Alex Eddy, a bunch of guys. So we will have a presence, and hopefully expose people to the game, and they can see what we've been seeing.
Yeah.
And it's I think that those guys are on a roll. It's funny. Somebody was saying, said, you had your Elwin moment. I said, yeah, I had a couple of years there when I could do no wrong. But it's one of those things where you just you get on you go with it, and stuff happens.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was just telling somebody just the other day, that as much as people scrutinize things, at least from a design standpoint or anything like that, we're going to look back 20, 30 years from now and realize there's 3, 4, 5 pinball machines being released each year, with high-level themes, with high-level call-outs, high-level design, and it's consistent, and the manufacturing's consistent as well. It's not like these games are being announced and nothing for 12 months, just like we walked the line today. Kong's everywhere. You know? So that's a key point.
The factory, I wish more people could see what you guys saw today, right? We're for real. And it's funny because I read on the internet every other day. I read that I'm going out of business, and I was like, man, I guess do I have to sell my car?
I don't think people realize how big the Stern operation truly is for what's going on.
No, I mean, it's like
here.
I see these the speculation. Oh, that factory, that was a white elephant. Now they got it. They're going to go out of business. And I was like, well, I seem to understand. It was like, we're doing more business because of that.
Yes, exactly.
But no, it's great talking to you guys, and we love having people over and showing you what we do. And
well, I hope you're ready to make a lot of Kongs. I hope you're ready.
We are. Yeah, we are. The operations guys are gearing up, and so it's. I mean, let's pray that this tariff thing doesn't beat us up too bad.
Yeah.
Because we want to continue to make games, and lots of them.
Sure.
So.
Well, thanks again. Thank you so much, George.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Appreciate it.
All right, now you're getting me hungry. I have to
go get some pizza.
Sorry.